welcome to episode 25 of the Long Toss here on the Walkoff. This is the Carlos Delgado edition. A lot of good number 25s. Barry Bonds. I know Jack has some strong feelings on Barry Bonds. Wore number 25. Mark McGuire wore 25. Jim Thome wore 25, just to name a few. But the boyhood Jays fan in me can't let an episode 25 go by without mentioning my childhood hero, Carlos Delgado. So shout outs to Carlos Delgado. Maybe future friend of the show. Who knows? All right, we got a lot to talk about.
That's the dream, yes.
We got a lot to talk about today. We got Jays Red Sox series review and what a series it was. The insanity that was Blue Jays 28-5 win. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. having a big season. Big boy season for sure. The Jays have gained 4 games on the Yankees in the last 12 days. Are the Jays completely out on the AL East title? Or do we actually have a shot at winning the division? It is long, and we are 12.5 back, but who knows? We'll get everybody's thoughts on the All-Star festivities. What the Angels are doing with Shohei Ohtani. Reports are surfacing that they are not looking to move him, but is it just posturing, and could there be something going on there in L.A.? Juan Soto intrigue continues. Maybe future Toronto Blue Jay, Juan Soto, who knows? I'm sure every fan podcast out there is saying that about their home team. Trey Turner gets no love, but since 2020 is second in the MLB in F-WAR. Is he a top 5 player in the league? And will there be a more sought-after free agent in 2022? These are just a few of the topics. I know everyone on the panel has brought something special of their own for us to get to. But before we go too much further, let's just announce our panel for the day. So Scott Belford, welcome back. Nice to see you, Scott, my co-host of the Walk-Off.
2 in a row here, bud.
Two in a row. You took a month off, but now you're back.
I was off for 2 weeks. I missed.
Okay.
Anyways.
Okay, you were off for 2 weeks. We canceled a show 1 week, so that's 3 weeks. And then the way episodes work, I mean, you have the 6 days up to an episode and the 6 days after an episode, so it's 4 weeks.
See, I hate the math of this. I don't know why you're doing the math.
The math checks out. All right.
It's good.
Craig Ballard, Jays Talk on TikTok. Nice to see you, Craig. You didn't get a proper introduction last week. You were a late addition to the lineup, but a fan favorite. So I know everybody in the live chat was really excited to see you back. Are you going to be back more often now?
Hopefully. But we'll have to see. You threw a curveball there. You opened the show with math. So if the show's taking a different turn, perhaps not. We'll have to see. But hopefully.
Six hopefully sound promising though. So I mean,
right? So hopefully this is a very promising amount of.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, and our Iron Man, Baseball Jen, longest running streak on the show. Welcome back. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Joel is away for now. He's having a hard time getting into the room, so he was our longest streak before Jen, but we'll see. I don't know. He's is he still trying to get in, Scott? I know he was rebooting his system, so
I haven't heard from him. I don't know.
All right. Well, we've got Jack from Daily Dose of Baseball on TikTok. How you doing, Jack?
I'm great. Thank you for having me once again. Really nice to be back.
Are you happy with the Orioles' performance in the draft?
I'm really happy with how well we did. I'm really happy that we got Jackson Holliday. I'm gonna really love watching him in 5 years when I'm 27 years old, watching him play alongside Cedric when he's 35. So there we go, basically. No, but I really love our draft, and I'm really excited for the future. And the future's starting to get here. It's 2022. It's about time.
You guys are knocking on the door.
How
that's
young
for
you
sure.
are, Jack. Gosh.
All right. Next up, we've got Josh Elijiah. Comedian from Toronto, I believe, if Scott's notes to me are correct, and host of the Down by 2 podcast. Josh, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thank you. Most of that checks out. I actually moved out to London, Ontario, but yeah, originally from Toronto. Done a bunch of shows with Scotty B as well.
Yeah.
So it's great to chop it up with you again, buddy, and great to meet you guys as well.
Very cool. All right, and then we've got down at the bottom of the screen here, Daniel Vario. Host of the 10th Inning Baseball podcast, rocking the Alejandro Kirk jersey. But if my interactions with you ring true, you are a Dodgers and Yankees fan? That's your allegiance?
Yes, that might. I'd say much more Dodgers at this point in my humble fandom career, but
A little bit of a Yank. I grew up in New York, so I have some.
You couldn't
Yankees
pick two
ties,
bigger
but
underdogs?
The two most loved teams in baseball. I love
That's
it.
what it is. I think I
Couldn't
love
even
to
go
be
Mets.
hated. I love to be hated. I'm ready for my
Jeez.
rookie debut here on the podcast.
Do you have a like a New England Patriots and a Dallas Cowboys jersey behind you too?
No, God, no. Those are probably my two least favorite teams. So thank you for mentioning that. Giants fan all the way.
All right, very good. Very good. All right, so
that one
Joel's
hurts.
going to join us at any minute now. But while we're waiting for that, let's get to our sponsor of the show. Today's episode and every episode of The Long Toss is brought to you by Team Oh My. Out Hustle My Yesterday. Team Oh My Apparel has partnered with us not only to bring you this show, but also to produce some sick merch. So Scott and I refer to anticipated speculative injuries as bad tacos on this show, as to not to induce a jinx that we can be held responsible for. So we're doing a bad taco design contest. Submissions are open until August 2nd, so that is the trade deadline. Get your pictures, your doodles, whatever the case may be. We have about a dozen submissions for that contest right now, and some really impressive ones. Some really bad ones too, but I kind of like the bad ones even more. So we'll see which way we go with that. But there you go. So bad taco designs. Enter Walkoff at checkout for 14% off. Maybe one day we'll get the full 15% discount for you, but for now it's just 14. We appreciate it. At ohmy_apparel, teamohmy.com. Out hustle your yesterday today. Okay. That tagline, by the way, I wrote myself. I'm pretty proud of that one. So
Yeah, it's pretty
out
great.
hustle
I
your
was going to
yesterday.
say that was smooth. I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then lastly, shout out to our Patreon, patreon.com/the Walkoff Podcast. David, Abraham, Michael, Sarah, John, Simon, Rashid, Joshua, Jeremy, Ian, Dunedin, Bob, John, and Wyatt. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon. We do movie reviews. We do series previews. We do early access to all of our interviews. We do contests for this Jose Barrios jersey that we're going to give away at the end of August. So if you are a men's XL or just want to have a men's XL to hang up on your wall behind you while you podcast, this is the jersey for you. So get in there. All you got to do for that one is just shoot us a message on Patreon and just say why you want the jersey. And you're
We
into
do a
it.
lot.
So
We do a lot. Short intros are not one of them, but we do a lot.
there we go. All right. Let's get into it then. Jays Red Sox sweep for the Blue Jays. We kind of came out of the All-Star break saying that this was a not necessarily make or break series, but this was a real opportunity to make a statement. The Red Sox made a statement that they are going to be sellers at this trade deadline. Let's just, 28-5 on the Friday game. Obviously, that's the funnest one to talk about. I've never seen anything like it before. It was almost boring. It was so good. Scott, let's start with you. What were your takeaways from that game? Did you feel like it was the Jays winning, or was it the Red Sox losing?
So I'll be honest. I feel the best I've felt about this team in a long time. It was a real exclamation mark win on Friday, and on top of it, the amount of fun and joy you saw on that team, I haven't seen that in a while, because there hasn't been a ton for them to be super excited and exuberant about, but oh my, if you're a Red Sox fan, just embarrassing. Like, just a clown show. Just absolutely garbage. The defense was horrible. The pitching was bad. Just brain fart after brain fart. Like, that was the thing. If I was a Red Sox fan, I'd be like, these are things that if happened in the Florida State League, you would be pulling your hair out. You're like, you have never played baseball and it's happening on a major league field? Like, that mistake by Duran, where it was a grand slam inside the park home run by Tapia, and you just watched him stand there. Listen, I truly believe losing a ball like that, it happens. Shit happens. The way he reacted afterwards, I was like, is he looking at the ball and still not running at it? Which is exactly what he was doing, especially when you see who was it, Verdugo running from right field or whatever? Like, he ran so far to get this ball while Durant just stared there. And anyways, it was wild. The whole thing was loving it as a Jays fan.
Couldn't happen to a nicer team, that's for sure. Joel is here, so let's let Joel in really quick, and then we'll get to it. So I'm sure it'll be now a 16.
I think he took my advice. I told him to join from his phone. I told him to join from his phone because he texted me and said, I can't get past this one certain screen. Like, join from your phone. Did it work?
Yeah, Jack, thanks.
Right. You're sideways, Joel, but you're handsome as ever.
Yeah, take your
so.
screen
am
lock
I?
off, bud. Yeah.
The youth
There you
finally
go.
came through for once. That's something that I haven't heard anyone say recently. The youth finally came through.
There we go. All right, Joel. Welcome. We're just talking the Red Sox getting swept by the Blue Jays there. So we
Still sideways.
still sideways. All right, Joel. Well, you're figuring your shit
There we
out.
go.
We're gonna go to Jen. Jen, what were your thoughts on that Red Sox series?
I walked into a pub on Friday night and it was, I don't know, 8:30ish, and it was already 14-0. And for the record, I walked in with a Red Sox fan who just sort of looked at the TV and looked at me and then looked at the TV, and I'm surprised she agreed to stay, but
She didn't even know she was half through the pain. Like, at 14,
Didn't know she was about to witness
It
history.
was only halfway done. Yeah.
yeah. She kind of ignored things from there on out. To your question, Adam, I don't think it's so much that the Jays beat the Red Sox as much as the Red Sox beat themselves. But what I loved about that Friday game and today's game is that the Jays took advantage. They fully exploited every single mistake that the Red Sox made. And that's exactly what you want to see a team do, right? That's what a good team does. And so that, to me, was the most exciting aspect of Friday and today's game. Saturday, tucked in between, was this, gritty, grinded out win with Manoah on the mound, talking shit back and forth. And, I liked that being in between these two sort of clown shows going on, because again, that historic win on Friday, it was really, really fun and gives a lot of great talking points, but it still just represents one game out of the 162, right? That game yesterday with Manoah on the mound, that's your more typical game. And so I liked seeing the Jays sort of win every which way in this series.
Did anyone else feel a little blown away by the reaction to that 28-5 win? Like, I was in Glace Bay, Cape Breton, and I got off stage. It was the 5th inning, and it was 25-3, and truly, everyone there, as soon as the show was over, they were talking about it. People had been texting them. They threw the game on the and these were not, like, you could tell there were a lot of them that were not big baseball fans, but still appreciated the magnitude of what was happening there. Did anyone else find that? Like, just some of their non-baseball friends were, like, being in touch with them, being like, this is insane.
Did you see the reaction to it around the world? Like, there's a clip of Thursday Night SmackDown or whatever WWE show is, and they, in the middle of their match, because they were in Boston, they're like, do you know that the Canada, whatever they're called, is beating up on the Red Sox just down the street? 20, I think it was 24 at that point. Tom Brady tweeted about it. Tom Brady tweeted about a mid-season Blue Jays game with like a Winnie the Pooh looking at something and being like, what's the score? Like, it was everywhere.
He is the last active pro athlete drafted by the Montreal Expos. So
true.
Kudos to Tom Brady.
That's true.
There's a lot of glass half full approaches there. Mr. Glass half empty over here. I was nervous as anything. Take your mind's eye back to last year. Last year had that really rare 4-game series at Fenway where it wrapped around the weekend. Remember that game 4 was on the Monday? You never see that. Sunday was an 18-4 beatdown, and the Jays were yucking it up in that dressing room, loving life. The very next day, mere hours later, Alek Manoah on the mound, Blue Jays lose 2-1. So I was very nervous about Saturday and Sunday, especially back to the scene of the crime. The same thing again. 1 million runs the night before. Here's Alek Manoah giving you a gutsy effort the next day. So I don't know. I think that's probably a personality trait. It's maybe a glass half empty approach over here. But I was nervous.
I was worried too. I didn't want to bring anything up and be accused of
I
the
didn't think
jinx,
they'd win Saturday just because I thought the Red Sox would want to come out and throttle them, right?
I felt
And they
the
didn't.
ultimate baseball thing was going to be a 2-1 win the next day to the Red Sox, just
that's what I
totally
thought too.
negating every one of those runs, and all that run differential is completely meaningless because you lose the next day out. But thank God we continued.
Joel, you got a lot of heat last week for your take, and I agree with you. Or we kind of took the same side on the home run jacket, and I mean, people either love it or hate it. And it seems like you're not allowed to have an opinion these days. But when the Blue Jays were up like 28-3 and Vasquez hit a home run, we got a good comment in our Discord. Does anyone know if Vasquez got a ride in the laundry cart after hitting that home run?
I was wondering that actually.
To go along to that point of like talking negatively about the home run jacket, it's just like I heard everybody go down the positive route. You know, it wouldn't be a show if you had like 9 people on it that all took the exact same opinion. You didn't go against it anyway.
You're our Stephen A.
It was a
Smith,
very
and
selfless move,
it.
Joel. Very selfless.
But like, I think it's, you gotta find time when like you have to be able to contrast Manoah saying stuff like go sit your bitch ass down and then celebrating, you know, like there's a big contrast in emotions here, right? And sometimes that jacket at home in front of your fans who you're trying to do something for is great, but like, you know, sometimes situationally, do you want to buzz the tower, you know, in Boston? You know, do you want to get them all pissed off at you so that big game that you win one day is lost the next day? So, you know, it's all about those emotions. Do you wake up that dormant volcano? That's kind of where I was going with it.
Speaking of Alek Manoah, and then we'll open this back up to maybe we'll go to Josh first. Alek Manoah had a bit of a scare yesterday as he seemed to not throw the ball despite a very aggressive delivery to home plate. Spiked it into the dirt, mound visit, pitched the rest of the inning, and I think had a regularly length start after that, but seemed to struggle with control in the short term afterwards. Scale of 1 to 10, what was your panic level on that? Because for me, I was like, oh dear God. Like if Alek Manoah goes down, and I think this reinforces our needs going into the trade deadline, that we need depth at starting pitching, because Alek Manoah is one tweak away from this feeling pretty scary. So how were you feeling when you saw that? It looks like it's not going to be an issue. I don't see any further updates at the there was an injury or anything there, but did you have any
pitched
panic
like
in
6
that
innings
moment?
after that.
I think he said the mound was sticky or slick or something of that nature. He blamed the condition of the mound.
I was really scared.
I think that goes without saying. I think everyone probably was panicked.
Right,
Yeah.
he's a guy who's going out there with a record winning percentage, and you're literally locked down a day for a second year pitcher as like a Felix Hernandez, King's Court type situation where you're looking forward to that game out of all the games. Like when's Manoah pitching, right? So, and if you look at a situation like I would say with Lance Lynn for the White Sox, him going down at the beginning of the season and that team kind of struggling along the way, you'd love to have that bulldog every 5 days, knowing exactly what you're going to get. He's going to save the bullpen and all of that stuff. And he's been the most consistent at literally every aspect of when it comes to winning from a pitcher. Like he goes out there he's up 8-0. He's pitching the same way as if it's a 0-0 game, right? So to take that out of the lineup, your MVP is as scary as it can be. So very scared.
I know we talked about it just before. Sorry, Craig. I know we talked about it last week, but going into the All-Star break, Alek Manoah had pitched more innings this year than he's ever pitched before. And then to have his very next start over that threshold, have a moment like that, really was like clenching my seat watching that. But sorry, Craig, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the only reason I wasn't concerned is because a Blue Jay pitcher injuring themselves on the mound, that's a normal wear and tear. That's not in line with Toronto Blue Jay pitcher injuries. So I knew he would be fine. He wasn't walking his dog. He wasn't slipping on stairs. It wasn't a boating accident. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. So I knew we were okay. And by the way, just housekeeping on did Vasquez go on that ride? They were looking everywhere for the shopping cart, but Chris Sale had torn the darn thing to shreds. So no, Vasquez did not get his ride. Sorry.
Fair enough. All right. Alek Manoah looks to be good. Where are we going from here? Let's pivot slightly from the pitching now to Lourdes Gurriel Jr. having a monster season. His brother won the AL batting title last year. Lourdes now has a shot at it this year. He's hitting 320, just under. Is he a Blue Jay for the rest of the year, I guess, is the question that Scott wants me to pose everyone? Or is he maybe the odd man out if we're bringing in a left-handed bat? He's probably going to be an outfielder. Let's go with...
Can a non-Blue Jays fan try and jump in and ask a question about this?
Please,
Yeah, I'll jump in right afterwards, too, and get some perspective as well.
So just when I saw you pose this question, the first thing I thought of is I've been a huge Gurriel fan since he came up. I thought originally he was going to be like a 25 homer guy because his slugging looked like it was going to be better, but it's pretty much gone down every year. At this point, he seems like he's basically his brother. He's a 2.0 Yuli. All he does is hit. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the question, is what would you want? What would you trade him for if you're looking to move him? Because he's not crazy old. And I think trading someone who can put the ball in play at a high rate for a team going to a playoff series, I think that's a bad move. For me, if I'm a team, I've seen it with the Dodgers. I've seen it with the Yankees. When it comes to the postseason, you need pitching and you need people who put the ball in play. You're going to go out and get an outfielder that maybe slugs a little bit more from the left side. I know it seems fun, but just from being hurt, I just don't. Gurriel's kind of like, he's like a Chris Taylor, right? He's like a Kike Hernandez. And maybe those players don't seem to have the value over the 162 that you can recognize. But I'm telling you, come postseason, to have a guy who's not going to strike out and put the ball in play, especially when injuries can happen over the second half of the year, if you have someone else in his place, I don't know. I would stay with Gurriel unless you have a solid idea of who you want to bring in and what the hole is.
No, I'm right there with you. I'm going to jump right in as well. I think the easy answer is no. I mean, if you look at his numbers, he's had a very good season. He's hitting 313. He has an OPS slightly under 800. I mean, to even think about trading that, to me, as an Orioles fan, I'm just like, why would the Blue Jays want to give him away? I mean, I don't see that. The man like Daniel just said, the man puts the ball in play every single day. He just had a 6-hit night in that 28-5 blowout, and drove in 5 runs. So to have a conversation 2 days later about, all right, do we want to get rid of him at the deadline? It's like,
okay, hold on. Let me stop this here before we bring it back to the Jays fans to jump in. We are not saying we got to get rid of this cancer in the locker room here. This is just
I know. I'm being.
It's the same talk with Alejandro Kirk that we've had, or Gabriel Moreno, or whoever, right? We do have real holes, and we have some positions of strength, and I think Lourdes Gurriel,
right.
I mean, as you guys just described, is clearly a position of strength. Is an asset that another team might want back if you're the Cincinnati Reds.
Great contract, too. 2 years left, $3.5 million a year.
Yeah.
If I'm the Blue Jays, and there's upwards of 4 pitchers on the Miami Marlins that they can have Lourdes Gurriel for before the show ends. And by the way, if they prefer Teoscar, there's about 4 pitchers in Miami they can have Teoscar for as well, by the way.
Even to Scott's as well, though. That contract, when it comes to he's 4.5 this year, and then next year he's 5.4, and for the amount of upside that you get
for sure.
For Pena, and especially with him being a locker room guy like that, I just believe that there's a lot more upside to keeping him. I don't see you putting him in any sort of package unless it's for something big, which I guess we can get into later. But for the time being, you're not going to give him up for something even if you want to address pitching, for example, if you want to give it up for a Luis Castillo sort of thing, I don't even see there being value in that. Mainly because of the contract, and just even just watching him on Friday, him being able to go 6 for 7, that's pretty incredible. So no, I do not trade.
Okay, so here's the second question then, because that's a good point. Very team-friendly contract. He's under contract through 2023 as well. Arbitration in 2024, and then a free agent in 2025. So if we aren't willing to include him as a piece, is he a guy that we want to be re-signing? Not necessarily this year, but is he part of the long-term Blue Jays plans, right? Because I think that's the next question. If we're talking about we don't want to get rid of him, We're not going to just
So
let
I
him
just
walk, right? 'Cause
wanna,
that's
I'm
where I
gonna
keep coming
jump in
back to
real
with
quick
Teoscar.
here.
Go ahead, Scott.
Just because I do really like Lourdes. So everything about I like Lourdes Gurriel Jr. I think he's a great ball player. The value he brings for the money he's being paid is rarely seen in MLB. And that's
They're
the truth
making
of
more off his hair merch than what he's worth.
And he's a
alone.
great clubhouse guy. All of those young dudes who came up together love Lourdes, right? You see it in the dugout, right? Like Vladdy and Bo and all those guys are always, well, maybe not Bo, but like the Latin players are always hovered all around Lourdes, and he seems to be like the catalyst in that. So I'm not saying let's move him, but I am saying there is a shit ton of value there. And if you were to remove Lourdes from this team, depending on what's coming back, obviously, it might make sense to include somebody with that much value in a big type of trade where you're also getting an outfielder or something filling that hole back, right? Even if it's not to the same production level, if there's a pitcher involved. That's the only reason I brought it up, because there is talk of shaking this lineup a little bit, and Lourdes seems like a guy who has the most value, who maybe be the least of a hit if he were to leave this team. And I could be full of shit, by the way. Like, this isn't a hill I want to die on. I just, you look at the lineup, and Lourdes just seems like an obvious choice as a guy you could maybe package up in something.
And Scott, as well, with the unprecedented, I think almost every team makes the playoffs right now except Jack's Orioles. Sorry, but with all these playoff spots available, the asking price is going to be unprecedented here. Like a Lourdes Gurriel that normally, for whatever the return asset was, maybe you're looking at a minor league return. Now you're looking at a major league, a Lourdes Gurriel with that controllable type of contract. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. will be very, very sought after on the open market. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
Yeah, and I think if we go back to the point that was made earlier that he's not somebody the Blue Jays would extend or sign long term, then maybe you do need to extract whatever value you can. Obviously, it is all dependent on what is coming back in return, right? You're not trading him for
you don't need to move him. Exactly.
They don't need to move him. They need to move him for the right piece coming back to address the needs on this team, right? I mean, he's a streaky hitter, but you take a look, and since June 1st, he's hitting 388, 427, 525. It's
insane because he hit 550 OPS in April.
Right. His strikeout rate is the lowest in his career. He's making less weak contact. His solid contact rate is up nearly 3%. Like, he's already surpassed all F4 projections for this season, so his value is quite high right now. And so the Jays are in a really good position, right? Because depending on who it is you're talking about trading for, Juan Soto, let's say, and he's part of that package, what you're getting in return, but anything less than what meets your needs, you hold on to him and he still has value for you.
I think you don't make a move on Gurriel. You don't even make a decision on Gurriel until the catcher shoe is dropped, right? We're going to get a major stud coming back for one of our three catchers. Now let's look at the landscape of the team and see, is a Lourdes trade, a Teo trade, is something else necessary? So I think we would agree. That's the first shoe that has to drop, is what are we doing with this riches that we have behind the plate right now?
So while we're on this topic, I just want to quickly get into the YouTube chat here, and I know our Northern Growler brings up, he's like, who do you guys think costs more, Lourdes or Teoscar? I think what he means is who has more value. Anyone want to jump in on this?
Well, that's actually exactly what I want to talk about. You have to look at it in the future, I think, from the perspective of who do you want to re-sign and who's going to be more cost effective. Like, Teo's coming at it from the two-time Silver Slugger, All-Star, 35, 40 home run potential, which I feel like comes with a bigger ceiling on what he can ask for if you're trying to re-sign him. Lourdes comes in under the radar, and we know that he ages like fine wine because we can see it with Yuli, right? And I think when we look at Lourdes, we see a more athletic version of Yuli. I think we see a guy who started in the infield and became a really competent outfielder in a short period of time.
Better hair. Yeah.
But so if you're coming from the perspective of having to move one of those two, right? you get a lot when you're saying, hey, look, this is Teoscar Hernandez. This is a guy. If you're having to move an outfielder, right? With Lourdes, you may be able to sign him at a lower amount, and then that gives you amount for those, bringing back Vladdy long term. If you're looking at other players that you want to bring back long term, you have to look at players that you can bring back that's going to cut that amount down. And Lourdes comes in under the radar with a different type of production, right? Like his production that everyone just talked about is not home run based. It's not a streaky style. When he's grooving, he's hitting doubles and he's hitting all over the field, right?
Interesting to see him slotted into that 3-hole, Joel?
Well, we talked about it under Montoyo for the entire year about like the top 4 being unmovable. I feel like you have to be able to, in the moment, see a guy who's got an 1100 OPS over 50 games and say, you know what, you should be in the top 4 occasionally, right? Like that doesn't seem like that radical of a move, but it did for 80 some games. Him being down, you're like, oh, you're hitting well down there. We won't move you. That just seems ridiculous to me. So it's nice to see that there's some lineup fluidness when somebody's on fire and they can move up in this, what would seem to be a concrete lineup.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think you definitely nailed it. Like you're going to be able to re-sign Lourdes if you choose to go that route, as opposed to Teo as well, just for the amount that Lourdes would probably take. And then you have to think about, when it comes to keeping Guerrero as well. I think you're absolutely correct with that. And I would definitely lean more towards Lourdes as opposed to keeping Teo in the long run.
My thing is that I'm looking at both players right now. I have both players up on Fangraphs and Savant right now. And I really would rather keep Teoscar because I'm looking at what he did in 2021 when he was fully healthy. And when you see like 32 home runs, 116 driven in, and 870 OPS, I'm like, I want that long term. And plus, decent defense in the outfield. I wouldn't put him in center. He's a competent, corner outfielder. But
he's also well liked in the clubhouse, if that's any part of the factor.
Have you ever watched Teoscar Hernandez chase after a ground ball in the corner?
Okay.
Because this guy has no hustle.
That man does not have hustle. This is true. That's something that I feel like. But honestly, I feel like that's something that a coach needs to get on him for at that point. I mean, that's not something that like a fan can tell him. But I'm sure they yell to them.
No, we need Jack. We need you to start getting a series going on TikTok. The way Joel really outed all the sticky stuff last year, we need you to out Teoscar with his hustle.
Adam, you need to send him a shirt saying out hustle my yesterday.
There you go.
There you go. Yes.
That's a really low bar for Teoscar.
And it sounds like I'm super negative on Teo, but to me, it's from like honestly, Tapia has made this a conversation topic, which is weird enough in the first place. Like we have to talk about why we would never talk about trading any of those players without Tapia hitting 350 over his last 50 games and making a big outfielder move, a potential move at this situation. You thought that those guys are, you're talking about your number 4 hitter, right? And I don't want to move Teo. I love when Teo goes opposite field with a fastball when nobody else is. I think that bat is definitely more potent and brings you more, especially from a hitting standpoint. But from a long, but when you come back and you negotiate, he goes, I want $25 million a year. I'm a 35 homer guy.
And that's a great point, Joel. And that's something that Chris Weaver in the YouTube chat is bringing up here, is that Teoscar is going to cost more. He is going to cost more.
Like a lot more.
He hits for power. Exactly. And that's the big thing, is if you look at his OPS and his slugging, he's beating Lourdes every single time.
Yeah.
But it's not like this Blue Jays team lacks in power, though. And that is one thing that, this team has done very well over the years, is that they've always had a lot of home runs in this lineup. And I'm not saying it wouldn't be a hit to see Teoscar go, but sometimes you just need to evaluate whether a contract is worth it or not, and who you can bring in to replace it, and where we're at in, there's a lot of guys in AAA right now pushing up. Who knows? It's not like Teoscar was the most highly touted prospect, and look at what he became. There's guys like Nathan Lukes and Samad Taylor who are killing it right now in AAA, and I'm not even saying that they're even close to what Teoscar could be. But I just mean there are reasons that you could maybe try something else. There are people that are available, even if you go to the free agent route, right? Juan Reason, yes.
You see what I did there?
That is so toe.
let's pivot to Juan Soto now, just because we're kind of getting to this point. Juan Soto, would he look good in a Blue Jays uniform? And if so, what size do I need to buy for him?
Look at this.
All right, Dan came ready. That's great.
I think I'm just going to put this in the air, and I think everyone can collectively agree on this. There is one uniform in which he would look horrible in. Anyone want to take a guess?
Oh, we don't need to bring up the Yankees.
Stripes?
Not here, my
There we go.
man.
Thank you.
Not here,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad.
I would love. Hey, I'm on the other side there. I'm on the other
I just
side
like
there.
I like to think of Dan as actually my size, and he's wearing like 8 jerseys right now.
He's like Joey in Friends. He's wearing all of Chandler's jerseys right now.
Wouldn't it be an interesting move, though, to move Soto and then get all the return that you would get from the Yankees and then sign Judge?
I mean, they can do both. They can do both. The Yankees haven't really shelled out a big contract. They've taken on a big contract, but they haven't shelled one out in a while.
Sorry, Joel, are you saying Washington should do that?
Well, wouldn't it be an interesting perspective from Washington to deal Soto, get the return that you get, you get Volpe, you get you get the cream of the crop from New York, and then take that money that you clearly were going to throw $440 million.
They had it in the budget,
so
for
they
Soto,
have $300 million to throw at Judge, which is what he wants, right? So you've rebuilt your team and then reacquired the offensive production, not in 14 years, but over the next 7 years. You've got,
some 4D
get him
there, Joel.
You'll have to give him a 10-year deal, but it's interesting. I
don't think Judge is going to get anything more than a 7-year deal. Honestly, I don't see that. I don't see him getting more than 7 and maybe 35 annually, because he wants Trout money, and honestly, he's not Trout. He's maybe this season he's been better than him, but he's not getting 8 or 9 years. He's getting 7 and 35 a year. Honestly,
he was offered $211 from the Yankees, right? Like I think he's probably looking for 3, something that starts with a 3.
He's looking for that, yeah. But I think he's also got to understand that man is going to be 31 by the end of the season. I'm pretty sure he's going into his mid-30s. That's early 30s rather. Excuse me.
He just turned 30. He turned 30 3 months ago.
Oh, so he's going to be 31 by the beginning of next season. Honestly, I couldn't give an outfielder that much money because honestly, Trout's been injured to hell and back recently, and I don't want that happening with Judge. And I'm an Orioles fan. I don't want to see him get hurt. But he's got to understand 50, that he is right.
And an MVP, right? He's going to be able to get 300. Somebody will go 300 for Aaron Judge, right?
They might regret it towards the end, but honestly, the production at the beginning of the contract might be worth it.
And I'm on the other side, guys. I would love to see the Yankees trade for Juan Soto. We in Blue Jay land, we're thrilled about Aurelvis Martinez. The Yankees have 3 Aurelvis Martinez's coming, and it would cost them all 3 of those prospects, Volpe, Dominguez, and then some. I wouldn't mind that. Now you cheer. Now you hope that Soto is a bust with that $500 million contract in New York, and all the players coming up in all of their Aurelvis Martinez is coming up that I'm losing sleep over, that I'm trying to collect cards of, because that's how much I believe in the future, are no longer New York Yankees. So I'm actually on the other side of that.
Well, one nice thing. Go ahead, Scott.
I want to really quickly, sorry, gang. I just want to really quickly talk about what's going on in the chat right now, and they're just talking about that the fact that Jays need arms, they don't need Soto. Thoughts on that? Is it one or the other? I feel like if this team's bringing in Soto, they've got plans to do both, right? They can address all the holes.
Well, that's what I wanted to say.
Seems to be responsible.
That's what I wanted to say on Craig's point there about the Yankees emptying the cupboards to go get Soto. I don't think it is necessarily something that you can do both of. I think if you have to pay that price to bring in Juan Soto, I think you're out on the Luis Castillo. I don't think you're getting a top tier starting pitcher this year as well. So,
yeah,
I'd be fine if the Yankees went and got Soto too, because they're going to need pitching as well. So if that's one less team that we're bidding with for Luis Castillo, I'll take Luis Castillo in a Blue Jays uniform.
I am not fine with the Yankees going out and getting Juan Soto.
Neither am I.
I don't. Other side of that.
Exactly. No, I'm right with Scott. I don't understand how people would want to see him in a Yankee uniform unless you're a Yankee fan. I couldn't see that. That'd be disgusting. Imagine Stanton in left or Gallo in left. Ew.
No. Stanton. Gallo needs to be on the bench.
Gallo's going to be a Texas Ranger by the end of the year.
I like Gallo's defense at left. I don't like his bat, but I love his defense at left. That's one thing I will give him credit for. And then imagine Judge in center, which also doesn't make sense. But anyway, and Soto and Wright. That's an outfield that I think anyone would have a heart attack seeing. But I think that the Blue Jays would have a much better chance going for Luis Castillo, and it would make much more sense for them to grab Castillo because they have Manoah, they have Gausman, I miss him, and who else? Barrios hasn't been exactly great. He's set for a major regression throughout the second half of the season.
Yeah,
he's been competent, but he's set for a major regression, and I just think they need starting rotation help.
I don't know, Jack. I feel like he's on the other side. I feel like he's on the upswing right now. I feel like he's put in some really quality starts over July, and that his numbers have improved, and that dreadful May that just made him look like he lost his ability
didn't
to
strike
know how
out
to
anybody.
Pitch. Yeah, didn't strike out anybody. Like he seems like he's on the upswing. I mean, only time will tell. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm gonna go on the other side of that one too.
Maybe Fangraphs just hates him. I was looking at that because I haven't had time to watch all of his starts, but I looked at his numbers. They looked really good as of late, but you need starting pitching. I don't think any team can say,
we're
good
need
on the
starting pitching. I'm not arguing that.
So
absolutely.
I think Castillo is the right move to go, is the right way to go, honestly, because like you all mentioned before, the Blue Jays have enough power to be fine. So I don't think they necessarily need Soto. I mean, that'd be great, but Castillo would be the right.
Well, Castillo just reminds me of the move that they made for Barrios last year, right? So it definitely sort of makes sense, and then they can extend him possibly after that as well. And they definitely need help at the end of that rotation. I mean, like Kikuchi and Stripling. I mean, like you're going to need to beef up a little bit there. So absolutely, I think Barrios has been pitching pretty well as of late, and I'm definitely pleased with him. But I mean, Kikuchi right now, I mean, we're going to need some help down there. So definitely,
if you bring in a starter too. If you bring in a starter, especially of the ilk of Castillo, I mean, this bullpen lengthens instantly because you can put Ross Stripling back in the bullpen where all of a sudden we've got a legitimate long man again. And then you can roll the dice with Kikuchi in that 5-hole until the playoffs, and at least you've got a guy who's in the bullpen who can come out. Listen, Craig, what are they going to do with Kikuchi? They're just going to stuff him in AAA for the rest of the year? Like, they're going to bring him back up. I'm not advocating for it, but with Ross Stripling in the bullpen, at least there is someone to lean on other than Trent Thornton.
I just wanted to plug in the idea, though, if you're willing to bust the bank for Soto, is there not a guy you could bust the bank for who is a lefty hitter who just happens to pitch?
Not happening.
Yes.
I know. If you're gonna approach that one, wouldn't you equally approach that avenue too?
Daniel, where's your Ohtani jersey?
Scenarios.
Yeah, take it off here.
I didn't know it was coming.
He wasn't ready for it.
All right, let's should we talk Ohtani then for a bit?
Oh, you knew who I was talking about.
I did the math on it, yeah, despite it being a math-heavy episode.
I thought it was being too obscure.
All right, so Shohei Ohtani maybe felt like untouchable a month ago. Now the rumors are out. I mean, LA's saying everything they can to drive the price up, and they're saying we're not moving him, but it just makes too much sense to not trade him. Is there... Craig's shaking his head already. You think he's an angel for life? Do they sign and extend Shohei Ohtani? Because let's start with that.
Literally 0%. Literally no chance that Shohei Ohtani gets moved. This is a franchise that hasn't moved Mike Trout, and Mike Trout had no choice. He was drafted. He had no choice to go there. Shohei and the Angels went out of their way to create that marriage and create that relationship. Neither one is pulling the plug on this. Shohei Ohtani is not going anywhere. Let's throw it out as a discussion. Let's enjoy ourselves on the Walkoff podcast, but let me go ahead and throw the cold water on it right away. Zero chance. Absolutely none.
Yeah, Jack's connection crapped out. He said he was on his way back in.
All right, okay. I'll keep an eye out for Jack.
I think the bigger issue is going to be...
So what do we think then? Do we think, I'm just curious.
Sorry, Scott, let Daniel go.
If you look at it, they just hired Perry in 2020, and they hired him to come in and win a championship. They've been doing the same thing for 10 years. Great roster, can't win, can't make the playoffs with Mike Trout. He comes in, finally they make a move at the GM spot. He's expected to win a championship. He's only had the team for 2 years. There's no way, even for the sake of his own career, he's probably going to move Ohtani. It's just not the move that you make in year 3 as a GM when your contract's coming up next year and you were supposed to make the playoffs. It's honestly a sad situation. I don't think the fans want to lose Ohtani either, but they have to do something. They have to replenish the farm system at some point.
And that's a great point, Daniel. Like, that's my question to all of you too, is like, sure, maybe they shouldn't move Ohtani, but if you look at the big picture, like, something's not working, and they've got an awful lot of money tied up into two guys, and Ohtani's a free agent 2024.
And Rendon,
So, like,
Rendon has a huge contract.
Yeah, he's
Rendon's
right
a
up there
huge
too.
Contract, absolutely. So can you offload some money if you move Ohtani? Like if in the big picture is the best move? Like, I feel like this Angels front office is, well, number one, not very impressive. I again, and you may bring up a great point that he's coming into year 3 here. You just look at that organization, it's just sad that they haven't made the playoffs with the amount of MVP caliber players that are on that team.
No, they're embarrassing.
2.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah,
they
it made
trade
it-
Ohtani, it's like they're giving
It
up.
genuinely is embarrassing.
So it's so tough. It's a tough pill to swallow to say, I'm giving up. You trade Ohtani, you're saying the roster that we constructed, that we've tried to build year and year again with these big players, bringing people in, it doesn't work. We have to give up. And that's tough because
That's the toughest pill to swallow, honestly. And the fact that the Angels are still willing to say, no, we still believe in this team. We still believe that, Ohtani's in the best spot with us is, excuse my French, it's bullshit. It is, because, I mean, the Angels are essentially wasting his, Babe Ruth type
Prime
talent
years.
career. Yeah, exactly. So it's almost being selfish if you're the Angels front office to say we're going to keep him and still lose.
Well, something you said, Daniel, that actually, really good point is that the Angels farm system is doo-doo. Like it is, they do not have any good prospects. They do not bring up anybody great. So, even though they will not move Ohtani, they really should to get some sort of prospects back. And like, especially when he's at an all-time high when it comes to some sort of return on him. I mean, they're going to have to think about it because, again, like if you're going to try and sign him again in a couple of years now, then you're going to have Trout, who's 35 mil, Rendon, who's 35 mil, and then whatever Ohtani's going to get, that's going to be just less than half of your payroll going towards 3 guys. So
100%.
So
I agree.
Return.
I don't think they're moving him right now either. But if he's a free agent in 2024 and the Angels are in the same position this
Like
time
the window's
next
closing.
year, right? Is he really going to resign? I know that right?
No.
I don't think he is because I think he's going to want to win. His value is less in terms of trade value because now.
Well, he's already said that after his MVP year is that he wants to win and that's all he cares about. So
right.
It's like, why not get as much as you can for him now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Exactly.
think they're going to move him, but now is the time, right? Because his value will not be higher at any other point.
So Shohei Ohtani just turned 28 last month. Next year is the final year of arbitration. Looks like $5 million is what he's on the payroll for right now. Beyond that, I mean, are the Angels realistically going to be able to extend him? Because he's going to get
No.
absurd money, right? I mean, I'm a big NFL guy, and I've just watched for the last 5 to 6 to 10 years running backs who catch the ball more want to be paid like a running back and a wide receiver, right?
He's the most important athlete.
Yeah, he's going to want to be paid like a top outfielder and a top pitcher combined because that's what he is. He's going to get...
But
sorry, go ahead, Joel.
I'm sorry, it's a little glitchy. But the thing I wanted to say is that they, for a decade, buried Trout from October. For a decade, we didn't see Trout in October. Now they get a healthy year of both of them, and they're nowhere close. And they followed the same footprint of investing big in a guy who's on the back end of 30 in Rendon, who, if you look at Rendon's interviews after he won the championship, was like, I don't really care to play deep into my 30s. I don't really like baseball. I don't even watch baseball when I'm not playing, I'm not watching. So if you're like, I'm going to sign that guy for the exact same thing that they signed Pujols for, and watch a guy go from Tony 2 bags into Tony double play, who has more double play balls than he has doubles in his last 3 years. You followed the same thing that the previous management did. And now you've got two players who are beyond the game, who are more important than the game. And you can't get them to October. You've got to get those guys out of what it is to be an Anaheim Angel, because it's like being an Edmonton Oilers fan and watching Connor McDavid's talent be wasted in front of this fan base. It's just like he should be down in the United States making the game bigger. No, he's up
Here's
here.
the thing, though.
I gotta know. No. Go ahead.
Well,
go
the other
ahead,
thing
Josh.
too
Go
is
ahead.
that Ohtani brings in so much revenue. So I mean, the Angels aren't like they don't want to give that up either, and they're I feel like they're just gonna. They're not going to move him. They definitely won't. But I definitely feel he's going to go into free agency, and then he will obviously not stay with LA.
No.
Out of curiosity, Craig, and I'm sorry, I can see his wheels turning, and I really want to know, Craig. Out of curiosity, man, if you are at the helm of the Los Angeles Angels, how do you right this ship? Would you move Ohtani? Would you do something drastic?
No, there's just no way you can. Again, this is where a lot of us are, the lens a lot of us are looking at this is your typical player in Ohtani's position, a typical star player like Ohtani. Again, guys, I'm going to take us back to this. Both parties went way out of their way to arrange this exact marriage. Shohei Ohtani will absolutely re-up with the Angels as a free agent, 1,000%. This was his plan. This was the plan from day one, from jump. The winning, he'll hope, will come in Anaheim, but he picked this market and this home extremely specifically. He absolutely will be re-upped with. And the Anaheim Angels need to keep doing what they tried this past offseason. Not cutting the checks for the Rendon. I didn't like that. But trying, hey, can we have a reclamation project with Noah Syndergaard, who they could probably flip for something nice at the trade deadline, by the way. But if I'm the Angels, I am laser focused as I could possibly be on pitching. They got Reed Detmers, who's a rookie right now. He's got the no-hitter this year. The only words coming out of my mouth at all are pitching. Somebody asked me who's going to play third base. Man, my grandson, like you name it, going to play third base. I'm only talking about pitching because the back of that bullpen is sick. Raisel Iglesias is real at the back of that bullpen, but it's everything to get there that is an absolute nightmare.
I mean, it's interesting to even look back on their draft of 2021, and I mean, they took 40 pitchers. They took a pitcher each round, obviously massaging how they did it, right? Because they obviously weren't going after the top player available kind of idealism. And then, I mean, you even look at this draft, and it wasn't quite as drastic, but still they drafted, I think it was something along the lines of like 2/3 or even higher of their players were pitchers. So they're aware. But you just look at Trout at coming on age 30, and it was just mentioned Ohtani's 28. Do these guys start to get frustrated? Like, at what point are they just so happy to be in LA they don't care what win or lose, it doesn't matter?
I mean, I think Trout's voiced his frustration before, and Ohtani has multiple times saying, all I want to do is win. That's what I want to do. I think the big issue is I hear they're drafting 40 pitchers and 2/3 this season. When's the last pitcher they brought up that has been successful? They have been terrible at developing pitching, and they've been terrible at developing hitting. They've been terrible at developing, period. The last two prospects they've brought up has been Luis Rengifo, who you don't hear about anymore, who's a big prospect. And that's about it.
He was the number 3 hitter yesterday against Atlanta.
What'd you say?
Rengifo was their number 3 hitter against Atlanta yesterday. I'm pretty sure, and he said he's not playing well.
I mean, Trout's the only guy they've brought up in the last 10 years that they've developed from their own farm system and done well.
To play into that, like the concept that you can only acquire pitching from drafting limits you on what are you ignoring from a scouting perspective? Why are you paying half of your scouts if you're only going to scout pitchers? Like, what's the half of your scouting team even for if you're just going to draft pitcher? Look at Tampa Bay, look at the Yankees, look at how you build a pitching staff through everyone else's needs and your ability to look at everyone else and all those pitchers out there and say, how do I build myself through their needs by acquiring the best player that I have at any position and then using that as an asset to flip for what you need, as opposed to a very centralized focus and just hoping that the next best pitcher on your list is the guy. That just seems like something, a 10-year-old would do on his video game. It doesn't seem like really complex thinking because you're literally eliminating half of your scouting department. No, this guy's going to be the next best hitter ever. No, we need pitching. That is our focus. We don't care that this guy is available. That just seems baffling to me.
When looking at the...
Go ahead, Jack. No, you go ahead.
I think when looking at the Angels roster right now, I think it's quite safe to say every player or almost every player with hopefully a couple of brain cells is really upset with how the organization's running. They've lost 14 in a row this season, and they haven't been the same organization. They went from first place to what? Are they in fourth now? I think they're in last.
Yeah.
So there's no right. They're in fourth. So I think winning this season is out of the equation. I think that after this collapse, the morale in that dugout is low. I think with Trout also being injured once again, that's not going to help because the only person in that lineup who steps up day in and day out is Ohtani. And baseball is not a one, it's not like basketball where LeBron could just join any team and instantly make them a playoff contender. No, Ohtani can't run it by himself and no one's helping him. So I'm sure he's upset.
Okay, that's a good point. I want to just do like a quick crystal ball. It is now free agency. It is the winter of 2023, okay? The Angels missed the playoffs again. Shohei Ohtani is heading for free agency. He's turned down your best
straight MVPs.
He's turned down your best offer. How quickly do you need to find a new career if you're the GM of the LA Angels, if that's the case?
Like would kickball instantly,
right? Like there's
pretty damn
that's
quick.
the career ender, right? You can't miss the playoffs for as long as they have. Let Ohtani walk, get nothing in return, and then ever work in baseball ever again. Can you?
Unless the ownership is making so much money off of Ohtani merch, like we don't know, like there.
But if he's gone, they're not going to make it off merch.
Of course.
No.
If he goes to the Dodgers, if he goes to San Francisco, if he goes to New York, wherever he goes, the New York Mets, I'm sure, would offer him money. I'm just saying, if you let him go, you've got to be very confident that you're going to be able to re-sign him. So that GM better have had some real talks with ownership and said, you guys better buck up and open up the vault, and we're going to give Ohtani everything he wants, because if you let him walk and you get nothing back for that guy, you're fucked.
Basically.
Yeah.
That also reaffirms the idea that they need to trade him.
This is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right.
I say trade him. I say take phone calls this summer and trade him next year if you have to.
Yeah, it would be.
It'd be one of the greatest failures if you have these two generational talents on your team at the same time at their peak, and you do nothing of value with that. It's just the story writes itself, right? And it's we all know how that ends, and that is certainly with people finding new jobs, but.
Going into the Ohtani Trout era, the Angels are already a failure. I think people started to already forget that. The Angels are already a failure. They haven't made the postseason since 2014 when I was in 9th grade, excuse me. Aww. And I'm a college senior. And the fact that the Angels have the best player on the planet, and they've had him since 2011, and they haven't won a World Series, they haven't won a playoff series, that says something about how they're already a legacy of failure. And that's just reaffirming it. They need to trade Ohtani. I don't see how they can go any other way.
Yankees fans love to bring up, they're not winners. Anytime, like Shohei Ohtani should win the MVP this year. I don't give a fuck what any Yankees fan says about Aaron Judge. The fact that Ohtani won out over Vladimir Guerrero Jr. last year should just be writing on the wall.
In landslide fashion.
Yeah. Vladdy didn't get one first place vote, and damn well Judge is going to, and I still think that that's BS because Ohtani is better this year than he was last year. Like Ohtani, how can you? It doesn't even make sense. You could say that about an MVP winner. He's better this year than last year. Like his pitching has been unreal. He's finding it.
His pitching has been much better, but his offense has taken a step back. A little bit.
I mean, a minute step back.
He's
not going to hit.
Minute.
He's only going to hit
40 instead of 45 home runs.
I only say that for the advanced analytics nerds. I only say it for them. I don't say it for myself.
All right, let me just play a little bit of speculation here. If I was a manager or a GM for the Angels, and I did see the writing on the wall that we do have to trade Ohtani, is it not in their best interest to just not trade him this year, or at least put that bold-faced bluff out there? We're not going to trade him. Drive the price up on Juan Soto, and then that's your starting point for discussions in trade talks in the offseason, right?
I'm not sure if you'd ever be able to start there because Soto's controllable for 2-3 years now, 2.5 years.
No, I know you're trading off control and a little bit of age for someone who is the top end of your rotation and
Yeah.
In the middle of your
so
lineup.
like it is kind of a comparable. Like it depends what your team wants to prioritize, but you're getting
Right.
2 star players who's going to be 28 instead of 23. I don't know.
My guess is that the Angels are not hanging up the phone when teams call
No. not at
and
all.
say,
Right.
"Hey, let's have a conversation."
No,
Just to
I
throw
think
a hot
take any call.
I think they've been listening, but they haven't gotten what they've wanted yet, which
Exactly.
is like a top 5 prospect, and I don't think a team's willing to really give up that right now, honestly.
If I was the GM of the Angels and I said, what's the best thing for this organization's future, and I didn't care about my job security, I mean, I think everyone here agrees the Angels will probably not be making the playoffs the next couple of years. It's over.
Nope.
They've done the same thing. They run it back. I'm trading
Nope.
Trout and Ohtani this offseason. I
I
am.
do
I know
both.
it sounds crazy, but I mean, you trade both of them, you replenish your farm system and get young major league talent in. I think you could probably be competitive in 2 years if you bit that bullet. It's just, how would you explain that to a fan base if they're not going to understand how are we trading literally the greatest player of all time, especially for our fan base? And
Don't worry about Angels fans. They're used to losing. It's not
I
a
know.
big
But-
The
and
thing
al-
that blows me away is all the talk that they're not even thinking about moving Syndergaard. It's like,
Yeah.
how is this stuff that unless Adam is correct and this is all just a ploy by the GM to drive the price up on all their players, and it's possible. I mean,
I mean
gotta be.
here's
every
the thing,
front
right?
office likes
Is
to play it close to the vest.
regardless of how you measure Ohtani versus Juan Soto, right? Whether you say just in terms of trade value, you're going to get more for Ohtani than you would for Soto, or you're going to get less, or you're going to get the same. Regardless, whatever the price that one team is willing to pay for Juan Soto this trade deadline is going to directly impact, and a rising tide lifts all boats, as they say, is going to impact the trade value of Shohei Ohtani. So if we say he's available, I mean, it's the supply and demand thing right now. Right now, there's only one mega superstar available, and it's Juan Soto, right? Like if you're one of the 5 buyers who's in on Juan Soto, that's a 5-to-1 marketplace. But if Shohei Ohtani is also in there, you've cut the supply, or you've doubled the supply of major superstars, so the bidding war goes down. The trade value goes down on Soto and Ohtani. So I think it would be crazy to just actively shop him the way the Nationals are this year. All right, let's move on. No, we are at the halfway mark, so let's move to your topics for today. Because we have such a big panel, we're not going to play Guess the Total Career Earnings game. We are just going to get right into topics and streamline this process a little bit. So, Jen, we're going to start with you. What's the topic you've brought to the table? What are we talking about today?
Oh, as always, I bring 2 just in case, because I never know whether I'm going to be first or last. And so do you want me to just pick one, or do you want me to give you both and you guys decide?
I don't know. Pick the best one. And if it sucks, then we'll go with the other one, just in case.
All right.
Jen's like, can I burn all the topics, guys?
Yeah, can I just throw
I
everything
come
out
with
there?
more than one in case mine comes up with somebody else, right? I
Of
want to be
course.
prepared.
Just ask Siri to flip a coin, and it'll tell you which topic to do.
Okay, so it was announced today that both Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt are out for the upcoming series in Toronto because of their vaccination status. So these are 2 pretty big names not making the trip north of the border as a result of the vaccination requirements to enter and leave Canada. Do you think that MLB even entertains the possibility of the Jays not playing their playoff home games in Toronto because of all of this? Do you think there's even a discussion?
I would love to jump in first, but if anyone else, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. So if anyone's got something to say, jump
Scott,
in.
you let her buck. You've already jumped on toes, so just might as well say it now.
Okay, well let's live with these toe jumps on then.
Okay.
I think that the Toronto Blue Jays are a billion-dollar baseball market within an industry that fucking loves money, and there is no way that they endanger the amount of money that Toronto Blue Jays brings to MLB. I personally think all this talk of it is just frustrated American teams and frustrated American fans, and as much as it does suck, it goes both ways. The Blue Jays had to work very, very tough to make sure that all of their players were vaccinated, because they also would be screwed coming in and out of the country. You need to be vaccinated to fly into the U.S. Like, there's the fact that the Jays haven't been able to sign about 10% of the players and have had to work around that, and then have had to play homeless over the pandemic. I just feel like it's a wash. Americans can be as upset about this rule as they want. I think it's irrelevant. I think that the playing field is even, and I think there's no way MLB does anything to upset their money. But I'd love to hear a different take if someone else has it.
I'm just like I said, then in that scenario, and I don't disagree, but it boils down literally to profits versus competitive, what might be considered competitive balance, right? Like, it's an interesting way to what,
I don't know,
like,
when
priority,
profits have
right?
never not won, though.
I just tossed it out there because I assume there would be pressure from these other teams on Rob Manfred to at least have the conversation.
I mean, there's certainly going to be pressures internally in an organization. Like if you said, if it's Cardinals Blue Jays and the Cardinals have to start game one of the World Series without Goldschmidt and Arenado, easily their two best players, I mean, that's going to be an issue. That's going to be a serious issue. The people of St. Louis are going to lose their fucking minds if that has to happen.
Right.
I do think
Hopefully
there's going to be some
losing
pressure.
their minds on Arenado and Goldschmidt and being like, just
Right.
freaking do
Just
it.
get it.
For
Yeah,
the team.
that's what
Right.
they're going to be doing. I know. So it's gonna.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of pressure somewhere.
I believe Nolan's excuse was because he was trying to start a family. So hey, I mean, like that's your own thing, fine. But you know, if you have the kid, then yeah, just get the jab then after. I don't know. I mean, especially if it comes down to something like a World Series sort of scenario. But yeah, no, I definitely don't see them taking away playoffs from the Jays if we do.
No, I don't see it either. But at the same time, I think to me, it's more of a question of, does MLB want to have a sense of consistency still? Like, are they going to remain consistent from the regular season of, if you're not vaccinated, you cannot go to Canada, to the playoffs? And if they say yes, there's going to be manhunts for Rob Manfred's head. And if no, then people are going to wonder why. Where's the consistency?
It's not a
Where is it?
Manfred rule, though. It's a Canadian federal government rule.
Yeah.
Well, but that's also another reason to give Manfred a hard time. I think people are going to find a hard time to give.
He'll
Manfred,
be drunk. He won't even
Right.
notice what's going on.
Oh no, he will be staring at a wall. Probably he'll be in some suite staring at a wall. But no, I don't think that that's probably going to be an issue. I do think that if that does happen, then I think that'll say something more about the players that don't want to get vaccinated than it will about MLB and Canadian ruling.
For sure.
I mean, I watched a lot of football through the pandemic, and the NFL was a clusterfuck, I think is the nicest word that I can describe it, as their teams had, were playing with getting vaccinated or not, or quarantining as a team in a bubble, and they were trying to manage a full season and have the whole isolation thing going on. And it's an advantage for your team to just fucking get on the same page and get whatever, right? Like, if Arenado wants to start a family and thinks that the vaccine is going to impact the safety of that happening, I mean, who am I to argue with the science that he looked up, right?
Of course.
But
Right.
then if you're putting your family first ahead of the team, cool, fuck you. Like, that's fine. You're welcome to do that, but we're here to win. And
Right.
what the fuck do I care if someone wants to miss game 2 of the World Series because his wife is ovulating? Like, go for it then. Like, go have sex. Go impregnate your wife. But we're going to play some baseball while you're doing that. Like,
Bring Goldie with you.
sure. Just stir it up and we'll see what color the hair is when it comes out. This is a weird topic, but for real, like,
I'm not the one who made it weird.
Where did this come from?
look, I'm just saying,
Joel's
you've
in
got
the
your
waiting
reasons-
room, by the way.
Oh, you've
Yeah,
got your
Joel-
reasons
Joel-
And
to
as
not get
somebody with a
vaccinated.
genetics
Like,
background, this is actually making my mind explode.
what?
That's
Okay,
a ball player.
What did I miss?
The point is, if you want to put your personal choices ahead of the team, go for it. But like, it's a team sport at the end of the day, and like, either get on the same page or don't, and that's totally up to you. But that's also up to the team to either like put a little pressure on, right? Because like the AL is going to see it very early in the playoffs, right? If the Blue Jays end up getting that first wild card spot, they're good. If you want to be vaccinated and get into Canada, you have to be 14 days clear of your second dose. So this isn't something that you can go September 31st, you go, holy shit, we're going to match up with the Blue Jays in the first round. We better get everybody vaccinated. Like, it's too late at that point, right? Decisions are going to have to be made. Pressure is going to have to be applied by early September. So either like you're here to win or you're not. And you don't have to be. I mean, I just watched Duran watching inside the park grand slam as he watched the fucking backup catcher go and run and get the ball at the warning track. Like, we're all here to play at different levels. So whatever, but I have zero sympathy. I think the MLB is crazy if they're going to try and implement some sort of like neutral stadium for the Blue Jays to play in the playoffs.
May I just say that when I posed the question, never in a million years did I think Adam would somehow bring it to a threesome. And I obviously clearly went with the wrong question.
Or the
Joel,
definitely
Joel,
the right
Should have
one.
went with topic 2, Jen.
Hey, I wasn't.
Joel, you missed a lot in a very short amount of time.
I wasn't the one that invited Goldschmidt into that. Okay.
No, I take responsibility for
All
that.
right, thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joel, you missed a
Fed the
lot.
fire. Yeah.
You missed a lot very
I'll
quickly.
have to tune in on Monday.
Definitely. All right, let's unless anybody has some more info they want to add to that one, let's move on to the next topic here. All right, so Craig, we're gonna go to you. What do you have for a talking point, and how can we make it weird?
Player A. Let's talk about player A. Now, truth be told, I'm wildly in the minority on player A, and your clue is he's on fire right now, which isn't helping my argument. But player A, for a season, averages a 250 average, 335 on base percentage. That 250 average, beat it. Get that the hell out of here. 335 on base. Okay, we're getting somewhere. 763 OPS. I'm not thrilled, but I'm not vomiting. 22 home runs, 74 RBIs. So again, in my opinion, the big numbers: 250 average, 763 OPS, 22 dingers, 74 RBIs. Anybody have any guess at all what player I'm referring to right now?
Cody
Not
Bellinger.
a Blue Jay.
It is a Toronto Blue Jay. It is
Sounds
Slim
like
Daddy
chaos.
Vladdy's career production out of the 2 spot. I am way shouting from the rooftops. Slim Daddy Vladdy in the 2 spot is not the way to go. It has never been the way to go. Slim Daddy Vladdy in the 3 spot. I'm very passionate about this. A red hot Lourdes Gurriel Jr. with half the power in the 2 spot, please and thank you. And again, yes, Slim Daddy Vladdy's been hot in that 2 spot. But I think I'm going to be the minority on this, but I am way out for Slim Daddy Vladdy in the 250 hitter, guys. We don't even recognize Slim Daddy Vladdy with these numbers right here. It's nowhere close to maximizing his potential. I want him back in that 3 spot. I'm fully prepared to be on my own here. Please go ahead and give it to me.
Real quick here, Craig, do you have the amount of time he has spent in the 2-hole? Do you have his plate appearances? How many?
Yeah, 75 games, 295 plate appearances. So that's half a season. If Slim Daddy Vladdy's healthy for a whole season, he's playing 150 games. So I took everything and I doubled it.
That's a larger sample size than I thought. Nope,
that's a
all I
legit
was
sample
curious
size.
about. Yeah.
It's legit. Now, in the 3 slot, Scotty, 291 average, 374 on base percentage, yes, please, and thank you. 932 OPS, yes, please, and thank you. Averages 40 home runs and $104 for RBIs. For me, this is night and day. But Craig, he's so hot in the 2 spot. Granted. But John Schneider has said this move is permanent. I don't like it. I want Slim Daddy back in that 3 spot. What says you?
I think that's perfect. Slide him into the 3 spot. Put Soto number 2.
Okay. Okay, wait a minute. This is picked up.
The one thing that I would say to that is that his 3rd season was a majority in the 3-hole, correct? Like last year?
All, yeah. Well, majority. Yeah, majority. That's very fair.
Mm-hmm.
Very fair, Tommy. Yeah.
So I'm just saying that in the 2 spot, you're looking at his first 2 seasons, and there was a shift. in who he was as a hitter come season 3. So maybe those numbers project a little bit more the first 2 seasons of his production. That's the only thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, are these numbers adjusted for weather too? Because that's always, a big factor when addressing advanced stats. So, sorry, I'll just shut up and go away.
I just think that with seeing Vladdy in the 2 spot and him not having the best season he's had since last year, I mean, he looks like a bit of a different player from an outside perspective. I think you just got to go back to basics, do what worked last year, and just roll with it. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't know why they tried to fix something that wasn't broken going into this year to begin with.
I'm fine with him in the 2 hole. I honestly, you put Vladdy in the 2 hole, you put Vladdy in the 3 hole. From since they've moved him to the 2 hole, they're what, 8-1? We can chalk it up to the Montoyo firing, or we can give credit to Danny Jansen, who since he has been back, they've only lost 1 game. Everyone wants to be so quick to bring up John Schneider's record, and I'm not taking that away from him, but I mean, I think that Danny Jansen is due some credit here. I like Vladdy in the 3 hole, but I don't feel quite as strongly as you do, Craig. I'm kind of a toss-up, indifferent, until I need to eat these words, I guess, and then I will.
And I guess, Scott, the real underlying shame here, to be honest, this just occurred to me right now. The real underlying point and shame here is that this is a conversation, because we certainly went into this season knowing it was Bo in the 2 and Slim Daddy in the 3, and we were excited as heck about that. So really, the 100%. Underlying point is Bo. Hey, not helping with the regrowth. This, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I think everybody wanted Bo out of the 2 hole, right? And so at least that move was finally made.
Yeah.
And that's a step in the right direction, at least. And I guess, this is what Schneider wants to try to do, and doesn't want to just pull the plug on it too soon, because he wants to see, over a bit of a sample size, how does this actually work itself out? But if I don't feel as strongly about as Craig does about it, but I do like the idea of there being some fluidity, or openness to fluidity based on how certain players are hitting.
Openness to fluidity. That's our new podcast.
I would argue that, like, I feel the same way about Bo in the 4 spot now as we did about him in the 2 spot, meaning that the 2 guys below him I'd like above Bo right now.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I'd like Mateo back in 5, or Lourdes up where Craig said, 1 or 2, and then shift everything down with Bo being the one who's on his way down, because I can see that in the 7 spot, that type of all or nothing production. But when you're consistently getting good games out of a different group of players, that's who I want clustered together when I need offense in the 9th inning and you're coming up for the 4th time.
Agreed.
All right, let's move on from that then. Thank you for that, Craig. Scott, you're up next.
Okay, so Julio Rodriguez over the All-Star break was just, I think we can all agree, just a joy to watch. I mean, in the home run derby, he was super fun. He came out of the gate in that first round and just absolutely, if you didn't know who Julio Rodriguez was, which, if you're a casual baseball fan and that was your introduction to him, how do you not fall in love with the kid? But just yesterday night, it came out that he had injured his wrist prior to the All-Star break. Went in and then hit, 70-some home runs,
80,
right?
81, I think.
Yeah, 81 home runs, right? Swinging like a madman. Played the All-Star game. And then has missed every game the Seattle Mariners have played since. The Mariners were on a 14-game winning streak. They've just been swept by the Houston Astros. Do you think, you look at this 21-year-old kid who has literally been carrying this Mariners team, do you think this is a little bit negligence on his part and on the Mariners' part, knowing that he was maybe a little banged up and allowing him to go forward into the All-Star break and go through it, or do you think that this is what baseball needs to do to grow the game, and that in the end, him missing a few games and maybe costing the Mariners the playoffs is fine?
Did they
Okay,
charter a
my
flight
mind.
for him?
framing that poorly, but
I mean,
They charter a flight for him. Nice one, Jen.
I think that, yeah, I think it was on. I think Julio definitely was in the wrong for going to the home run derby. And also, just from what I've noticed historically, I could be completely wrong with this, but whenever a player participates in the home run derby, they don't look the same in the second half of the season. So I looked at that with Chris Davis in 2013, if anyone remembers that. And he just wasn't the same player. He had like 39 homers going into the All-Star break and ended with like what? 51, 52. So not
Chris Davis went on a 6-year slump out of that.
Yeah. So basically, don't do the home run derby if you don't want to end up like Chris Davis. Basically, that's what I'm hearing. But no, I think it definitely was on the Mariners' part and Julio's part. If Julio didn't tell the Mariners he was a little bit banged up, because that's also possible, not self-reporting your injuries. That definitely is on Julio because he definitely wanted to, show off his talent. He's a 21-year-old kid. I don't blame him for wanting to show off. But like at the same time, it doesn't matter. The All-Star game means nothing now. I'm pretty sure it means nothing because it doesn't determine home field advantage for Game 7, does it?
Mean anything.
No.
Right. So it quite literally means nothing. I mean, growing the game is important, but the game's doing well right now. It's growing well. It's grown well over the past couple of seasons. So, and everyone knows who Julio Rodriguez is, unless you're a casual fan. Everyone knows him. It's not like he's some unknown kid anymore. So I think that's definitely on him for participating in the All-Star game, participating in the home run derby, and costing himself time on the IL. That's his fault. I think that the Mariners, if the Mariners knew about this, they should have held him back, or at least advised him not to go to it, because this could cause him a huge slump once he's back. And I think it was
cost the Mariners a lot of games too. Like, let's not take the team off the focus here too.
Right, exactly. Because one or two games could cause them to miss playoff spot like it did last year.
We talked about last year on the Walkoff podcast about Slim Daddy Vladdy, should he participate. We specifically said, for all we know, he's not 100% and he's Vlad being Vlad, so why take that chance? Enter Julio Rodriguez this year, and take your mind's eye back to Teo's injury earlier. We were screaming bloody murder when Teo got injured earlier this year. He knew he was hurt. Charlie Montoyo came onto the field, didn't take him out. Remember, Teo shoot him back. No, I'm fine. And we said right then and there, Teo, that's ridiculous bravado here. You need to have the team in mind here. So if that's good for Teo with the Toronto Blue Jays, who is a real nice piece of this team, then it's certainly true of Julio Rodriguez, who is the Seattle Mariners right now.
Right. Him and Ty France have been a great 1-2 combo.
Greg made the point I was going to make, which is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is also a young, exciting player who hits bombs, and he's turned down the home run derby, right? Because he doesn't want to risk injury or changing the mechanics of his swing in the derby or any such thing, right? And so he's made that decision to put the team ahead of his own personal accolades at the home run derby. So yeah, I absolutely think this is on Rodriguez and certainly on the Mariners if they had an inclination.
Which I'm not gonna lie, I don't
just to take a little pressure off of him, right? Like, I'm not saying let's throw him under the bus. He's young.
But he's also professional. He's also professional at the same time. So, I mean, it kind of like I'm 21 as well, but I'm also like a professional as well. I'm obviously a professional baseball player, but like, I mean, it's not like he's like he has the mentality of like me, who like, oh, home run derby, oh, flashy, I want to go do that, or team player, want to value myself first. I just don't think the Mariners actually knew he was injured. I don't think they had a clue, to be honest. Or if they did,
why would they let it out that he was injured before the All-Star break? It's the only thing I don't understand.
Exactly.
Weird. It's weird. I do just want to say, Jack, you mentioned that everybody already knew who J-Rod was, unless maybe you're a casual fan. Most baseball fans, though, are casual fans. So I would say most people didn't know who he was, and I do think this did do some like real,
put him on the map.
Put him on the map for
league fan, like just to like put it in perspective.
Yeah. Like I'm sure there were some kids buying some Julio Rodriguez jerseys.
And when I say casual, I mean,
sorry, Scott. We're
like if you're a fan of the Brewers, you watch 40 Brewers game a year. You're a 13-year-old kid. You watch it because your dad loves the Brewers. and then you sit down and watch the All-Star game. You haven't paid attention to the American League the whole season, and this is the first time you're seeing Julio Rodriguez with his massive smile and just his swagger and just hitting bomb after bomb. Like, again, it is good for the game, but
good for the game, bad for the Mariners.
I think we're all on the same page.
If I could jump in here for a second.
Really bad for the Mariners.
Go ahead, Dan.
Dan, go ahead.
The one thing I want to say is we're questioning, like, why did the Mariners say this, that he was injured prior to the All-Star break? Let's not forget the Mariners organization has been amazing at the last couple of years with what they said about Kelnick and keeping players down. They don't care whatsoever about keeping players out of games during the fans over. They haven't been the greatest with public relations. And let's put it this way. I don't think Julio was that injured because I don't think anyone, even a 21-year-old kid with adrenaline, can hit 81 home runs if your wrist is in pain. So I think most of the injury probably came through playing it, which then they can put on Julio by saying, well, he was injured before and didn't tell us. I think it's honestly Mariners PR just getting it off their backs and putting it on the player. I'm also very biased. I'm a huge Julio Rodriguez fan. Traded for him this offseason in my Dynasty League, if anyone was interested. But
nope.
I don't know. And I mean, these days, especially when kids are this young, the age of, like, getting paid to play, like, he's a brand now. He's going to make more money probably off the field than on the field the next 5 years. This is huge for his brand. He can, like, through Instagram, he has a YouTube channel, right? Like,
yes, he does.
For him personally. So,
are you in a dungeon right now? Like, okay, it's a fan. I'm like, what is happening here?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm in my room. I'm back at home for the summer. I'm sorry.
Seizure warnings for this episode.
I just think there has to be more that went into it if he went out and hit 81 home runs. His wrist, I think his wrist was okay at that point.
And Daniel, this is a guy making $775,000 this year. If you win the home run derby, that's
$1 million.
So, are we seeing reasons why a 20-year-old kept something to himself, perhaps?
Yeah, sure.
$1 million of them.
No, obvious.
Good point, Craig. Very good point.
Obviously, yeah. I think, I mean, it would make total sense to, say, oh, my wrists are a little sore, but, like, that $1 million is a lot of money. It's
1 in 8 chance.
Right, but what also
1 in 8,
was his signing bonus? Was his signing bonus any decent with the Mariners? I would assume it was a little bit. So it's possible that he may not have been, in a financial crisis. But then again, I mean, he's 21 years old. He probably did keep something from the Mariners, and it will cost him a few games down the line.
Well, financial crisis is a relative term. I mean, making $700,000.
Well, yeah,
you're not in financial crisis right there. No. But that being said,
no.
I just want to say that this is why
a few bad bets you are.
This is was my concern with Alek Manoah when he. Whatever happened on Saturday's game where he fell off the mound and then really seemed to struggle with control for the rest of that inning. Like, I know he went on and pitched the rest of the game, and now after the fact we're, okay, it was just a slippery mound or whatever the case was, but, like, this is, I mean, if it's Justin Verlander says I'm fine, you trust Justin Verlander, right? But Alek Manoah, like, this is the one risk that you have with the young guys is that they don't know their body, right? Like, even if it is just a little bit of soreness, there's a chance, like, you leave them out there for another 2 innings, and now it is like a season-ending bad taco. So, I don't know. I was a little bit frustrated that we couldn't have just at least got somebody warming up in the bullpen. Like, there just seemed to be like, no, we're just going to take his word for it. He's pitched 200 innings in his life, and we're just going to take him at his word that, he's good.
That is such a good point that I hadn't really thought of.
Yeah. Alec, your left arm came off. I throw with my right. Give me the ball. That's an Alek Manoah mentality, and there's the guys they're trusting with their word, to Adam's point.
The thing that I wanted to add to the entire idea is that you've got these types of players at the end of it hitting 85 home runs when you're at the end of this home run derby, right? And the issues really don't come in the first 50 swings. They come in the second 50 swings. That's when you see them get completely dogged out. They're tired. Their swings are overextended. And that's when you start to worry. To me, that's where the issues come in. You look at Rodriguez, you look at Vladdy. They didn't win their derbies, but they go out in the first and second round and put 30s and 40s on the board. And you realize that there is an amount of diminished return when it comes to these players and how many swings that they can take on any given night, right? So what I was going to say is that, especially when you've got this added bonus of hitting a 440 footer, you're not just trying to wall scrape these things. You got to get them out there. You got to really put something on it to put it 440 when you're facing a batting practice pitcher, right? You're providing all the power there. So like when we go back to our other episodes, we talked about how you need to expand the All-Star game to provide more, to put more things on display than just the home run derby. Because I think if you just had 2 rounds, a setup round and then a finals, and they end up taking 50 swings in total, it would be better. You'd see more people wanting to be a part of it, but you wouldn't have that long lingering after effect of them taking 150 full out swings in one night and that costing them their approach at the plate, their health, whatever the issue may be. I feel like it comes when you've got guys who are capable of hitting. That's the max that these guys can do. We're maxing them out on that night. Vladdy, when he set the record, he's completely dogged out. And that's probably the only time of the year where he's dogged out hitting.
Well,
he's not doing that every day.
And baseball is aware of the fact that they're pushing them too far, or else there wouldn't be a timeout in the middle of the round as an option.
Yeah,
right?
My biggest takeaway
physically.
too. Like, think about this, everybody. Juan Soto, 2019, very well could have been in the home run derby. Absolutely could have been. But guess what? He wasn't. 21 years old, same age as Julio at the time. And then the Nationals go on to win the World Series. Very similar positioning, by the way, the Nationals as to where the Mariners are right now. And it's just kind of intriguing to see that now that Soto's on just a shit team and it doesn't matter at all, he's like, absolutely, I'll go in.
The Nationals, from the other point, wouldn't pay his flight accommodations, and he had to fly himself out to the home run derby because they're like, no, don't. We want you to be at max value in case we trade you.
I love that Scott Boras was like made
That's
a big
hilarious.
deal about it. The Boras Corporation made a huge deal about this, but also didn't spring for a flight for him.
That's true. The Boras Corporation. That's a great point. All right, that's funny. Let's end it there and move on to the next one. All right, Joel, you're up next. What's your talking point? And floor is yours.
My talking point was kind of the ability that the Blue Jays have had of taking outside talent and seeing more out of them. So I'm going to use 4 examples, specifically Semien, Robbie Ray. Now Kikuchi is a bad example. He's the bad example, but Tapia is now turning out to be a little like that's clearly a project. That's clearly a player that they look at and they say, if we redesign him and we make his approach we redesign it after a set amount of time, it will pay off. And we've seen that. We've seen it take pretty much 90 games. Well, not 90 games. It honestly took 40 because over the last 50, he has been that newly designed player that they've conceived of him being. Semien being a 45 home run record-setting second baseman, Robbie Ray winning a Cy Young. So I don't know. My point was we give a lot of flack right now because of Kikuchi being one of these projects and it being a big, $36 million. And we think that we can turn him into something. And I'm not saying that can't still happen, but at this point, you're really like, you've cost us a little bit. It's taking a little bit longer than we would hope. But my point was strictly that Atkins and Shapiro seemingly have this ability to see the talent elsewhere and then reform it into their concept of what that player needs to be. It's not really a question, but do you see it as a really kind of a good ability that this team has to be able to not necessarily go after a guy who's going to fill the hole because of what he says on the stat sheet, but the fact that that you can turn him into the player you need him to.
I think it is a real strong point in this front office. And I mean, even if we're going to step out, number one, Raimel Tapia is such an interesting subject in general. I mean, first impressions mean so much. And this Toronto Blue Jays fandom did not give him a lot of leeway. He came to town. He struggled, right? New market. He struggled. They're working on his swing. They're working on his approach. And, man, he sucked in April. And for the good part of May, he sucked. Well, we sat and watched Randall Grishuk put up his regular Mr. April numbers in Colorado, where you're just like, oh man, I was even guilty of it in May. I think I even said, oh man, like Randall Grisham would look good on this team right now, and he would have at that point. But like in the last 50 games, Raimel Tapia is hitting and has an OPS of 912. The guy has been
over the last half of the season. He's hitting better than Vladdy.
It's absolutely insane what that man has wound up turning around into. And to further your point, Joel, of just some of these projects, if you will, that they kind of pinpointed. I mean, look at what Adam Simber has done for this team. This is a guy that they obviously targeted and went out and got. Yimi Garcia, same thing. He
Big
might
time.
very well. I mean, there's arguments that obviously Romano is above all, but there's also arguments to be made that Yimi Garcia has been, at least in the last 6 weeks, the best reliever on this team. So, yeah, I would say it's a big strong suit being able to kind of identify guys that maybe they can tweak here and there. But like you said, man, right? Sometimes you fly too close to the sun. I'm not saying Kikuchi is a write-off, but he's 31, and you look at his career average, and, man, it is sure looking right like it's his career average this year again, you know?
No, absolutely true. Yeah. Yeah.
And we're talking about Raimel Tapia with the minus WAR and the 301 on base percentage, right? That's the Raimel Tapia we're talking about, correct? That I'm supposed to be impressed with, correct?
I was more so pointing out the standpoint of where he was, and then you see the change that they have in mind take effect and what they envision him to be, and that coming to fruition, kind of. You know, it's over that 95 game sample size that you saw every bit of this turn into. Well, is that what they had planned? Because if so, that's pretty impressive to be able to turn a player at a later point in his career and take him away from a place where you think in Colorado that you would have that approach. Would you be looking to do that in Colorado where that might even well play better? And then for him to come to a place and say, listen, that's not really how we want you taking an approach. And for that to, come to fruition in what, 2 months, that's pretty solid.
This isn't really a point about what you're talking about, Joel, but I did just want to bring up that I thought it was really funny watching Raimel Tapia hit an inside the park grand slam home run on Friday.
Putting his head down
and watch him dog it out of the first base path. And the only one who dogged it more was Jared Duran, where you could just literally give up on a play and then watch another player give up on it even more, that you can correct yourself.
The fact that doesn't go as an error is a really weird concept in baseball scoring, how it needs to touch the glove for it to be considered an error. If that's not, like, granted, you didn't see the ball and that's going to happen from time to time, but the lack of effort in being like, well, whatever, it's an inside the park home run, literally on the moment of realization, was pretty astounding.
Incredible.
All right. Anybody else want to add to that? Scott, I know you've got to get going here. You got a comedy show you got to get to. So should we let you out?
Yeah, I do. I'll hop out now, but honestly, a pleasure to all of you. Thank you very much for coming on. Josh, fucking way too long, buddy. Good to see you.
Absolutely.
All right,
great to catch up with you,
everybody. Cheers, gang.
Bye, Scott.
All right, let's go to Josh next then. Josh, what's your topic? The floor is yours.
Sure, yeah. I mean, this is obviously the first time for me being on the show, and thanks for having me. I guess my topic is a little bit more fluffy because I'm meeting you guys for the first time and want to get to know you guys a little bit more. But I'm actually heading into Toronto to catch the Cardinals series as well.
Nice.
And that is actually my other team that I really like cheering for. I'm going with my dad to the ballpark, so it's going to be
Nice.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And Cardinals have been my team, since a kid. Like, and obviously I'm not sure about you guys, but I like other teams because my dad cheered for them too. Obviously,
Yes.
Jays first and foremost, but grew up watching the Cardinals, loved watching Mark McGwire, number 25, obviously.
There you go.
Whether juice, no juice, just love watching him yam balls. So I'm pretty excited to go see the Cardinals. And obviously Albert Pujols playing his final year as well, who for me has been like a big fan of him over the years. And obviously no Goldie and no anti-vax Arenado. So it's hopefully the Jays are going to be able to pull out that series. But I guess my question is, I noticed that, obviously Daniel, you were saying that you were a Dodgers and Yankees fan. We had an Orioles fan on here as well. What are some of the other teams that you like cheering for, and some of those other favorite players that stand out from other teams?
That's a great question. Dan, let's go to you first. You could talk your how you became aligned with two of the biggest asshole teams in the league.
Yeah, you gotta unpack that a little bit more.
Amen. Yeah. So when I was born and raised Long Island, New York. So growing up, big Yankees fans. My dad was a Yankees fan. Most of my friends were Yankees fans. But then in about 10 or 11, this kid came up named Clayton Kershaw. And that started a pretty long process of it didn't matter like what team it was. It's just if he was pitching, that's where I was. I've basically watched, including I turned it off right when Darren Ruff hit a 2-run home run off of him in the fourth inning today, just to hop on this podcast. But I've watched almost every single pitch he's thrown probably for the last 10 years. And my grandparents are also from Brooklyn. They were huge Brooklyn Dodgers fans. So even before the Clayton inception, they were telling me you got to watch the Dodgers. You got to watch the Dodgers. My grandpa actually worked on Ebbets Field. He was one of the people that helped build it. So I had that influence, and then I just started watching Clayton, and then that was it. I am synonymous with Clayton Kershaw, with everyone online, with all my friends. I have just a mural, just all right there. It's the Clayton Kershaw. I forget what the word for it is, but shrine. That's what it is over there in the corner. So really, I'm a Kershaw fan. I'm not a huge fan of what they've been doing lately. I'll tell you. When the first three hitters of your order are Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Trey Turner, for me, those are not Dodgers. Like I don't like when they buy players. It's not the kind of fan I am. Unfortunately, that's the way they've gone.
It's what the Dodgers do, though. So I mean,
to my talking point, we'll talk about that a little bit.
Do you think that they're going to be able to keep Kershaw once he hits free agency? You think they're going to be able to retain him?
You know what? I've never seen an organization have less interest in a pitcher that is still continually gives ace production when he's on the field. The slander on Clayton the last 4 years has been insane. Even on analysts, they talk about Garrett Cole and Verlander and Scherzer of being the best pitchers of this generation and the best pitchers right now, as they are. But no one throws Kershaw in that conversation anymore. And I'd like someone to point to a season where he's been less than top 5 pitcher production when he's been on the field, per pitch basis. I don't know if they're going to. I think eventually he's going to end up in Texas. That's my thought process. I think he's going to go home. But I'd love to see him finish out with the Dodgers.
Think about giving up on Verlander at 34 and how that paid off, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, Joel. What's your team of choice?
To play on the actual focus of the topic of connecting with your dad and baseball, rookie season for Pujols, that's backwards.
Hey.
But I saw him in his first 35 games of playing. And I was I want out of McGuire was still there. There was still a lot of people that you could go after on that team. Then to watch that player be where he is on the all-time list and be I got to see that from the very beginning. My player right now is Tommy John, because I actually wrote a screenplay about his life, and I speak to him, on a semi-weekly aspect. So from a personal business standpoint, he's connected me to the game through knowing a player and being able to dive into his personal story and all of that stuff. So that's been really interesting for me to connect to, you would say the Dodgers, but the screenplay takes place when he's a White Sox, a Yankee, and a Dodger. So you have to connect to those fan bases to truly dive into his world.
Wow. Super cool.
Very cool. Craig.
I'm Blue Jays or bust, but I'd love to send for Josh some shout outs to those Willie McGee, Vince Coleman Cardinals teams. If you're old enough to watch, Michael, Vince Coleman did things on the base paths that we will never ever see again. They were a lot of fun to watch. I was big fans. I've I'm just crestfallen. I mean, have I massively screwed this up? Scott and Adam were saying they like my old school Blue Jay jersey, so hopefully I've got that going for me because I was this close to wearing a Brooklyn Dodgers jersey. I mean, did I screw this up or what? John, I'm so sorry. Dan, I'm so sorry, man. I screwed this up. I'm so sorry. It's a Kobe Bryant Brooklyn Dodger jersey. I have it, but it would have said Brooklyn, so you would have been like, "Hey, Craig, I'm looking." So I've really screwed that up. I'm sorry. Yeah. From a Dodgers standpoint, the Simpsons will want me to remember Steve Sax as being a New York Yankee because when Mr. Burns put that team together, Steve Sax was a New York Yankee. But for me, Steve Sax was a LA Dodger. Steve Garvey, that infield is what I remember about those Dodgers teams. And it's funny you say Texas for Kershaw. I don't disagree. I'm a huge Julio Rodriguez fan, by the way. I think he's got massive potential. We've talked literally on this Walkoff podcast before about I hope that, because we're going to start to see that Ryu money coming off the book soon, I hope the Jays are asking a guy. We saw apparently they were this close, right? Verlander told us about 2 weeks ago he was this close to being a Blue Jay. So I would love to see them say, hey, Clayton, how about 3 years, $75 million, come finish your career in the American League East. Come finish your career being a gem at Fenway Park, at Yankee Stadium, at all these heroic ballparks. Come finish your career having a country cheer for you. I'm hoping they're going to look to go that route, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Jen, what do you got?
I was a huge fan of Dustin Pedroia. I just absolutely loved everything about how he played the game and grinded it out. I saw him at numerous Jays games and he was great with the fans. And I absolutely loved Dustin Pedroia. So I was a not so, in the dark Red Sox fan while being a Jays fan during the time that Pedroia, not that I cheered for the Red Sox over the Jays. That never happened. But beyond them playing the Jays, I was rooting for their success, strictly for his success, to be completely honest. And if we're going back to, if we want to talk about dads, I mean, the last two ball games I went to with my dad, one of them was against the Red Sox. And so, we sat there and watched Pedroia. The other team was the Astros a few days later, but, that's kind of been tainted to say the least.
Fair enough.
One of the great baseball stories I've ever heard. Dustin Pedroia, you may have heard it because David Ortiz is getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. So Pedroia is telling a story that David Ortiz, they spent like a decade together as teammates, and in year nine, he was signing a ball for somebody, and as he walked away, the person said, "Hey, thanks, Dustin." Or something, Dustin. And Big Poppy came over and put his arm around Dustin Pedroia. I said, "What did that guy just say to you? What did he just call you?" All this time, then for a whole year, he had called him like Spiky or something like that, Shorty, something like Ortiz had a nickname for Dustin Pedroia. They were teammates for 9 years. All David Ortiz heard was Dustin. Said, "What did that guy just call you?" Not like, "Hey, is that your?"
You never
name?
knew.
Was that an insult? What did that guy? Hey, like, are we about to drop fists here? Is it about to get real? What did that guy just call you? You had no idea Dustin Pedroia's name was Pedroia. Year 9 of them being teammates.
Hilarious.
That checks out for some reason. I don't know why. That
checks out for sure.
That's good stuff. For me, growing up on the West Coast, I was Mariners fan was the default Western Canadian team to cheer for. So Ken Griffey Jr. and all that stuff. Beyond that, though, I do have probably 5 different pieces of clothing that say Montreal Expos in some form or another. So Montreal, I would say, if that franchise could ever be resurrected, whether Tampa Bay wants to move there or Oakland wants to bring their guys up to Montreal, I'd love to see a second Canadian team. And I'm sure we'd have to cover them on the podcast as well. So
yeah, definitely have soft spots for both the Mariners and obviously the Expos when they were around. So definitely, I'm sure it goes without saying that everyone here would love to see that sort of resurrection.
Of course. Okay, Daniel, your turn. The floor is yours, my friend. This will be the last one.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm actually going to throw it back to something that was on our topic sheet. I had something I was going to bring up, but I'm going to move to this because I got to get on soapbox a little bit here. Because this is something I'll die on the hill for.
Sure.
I'm going to throw out some names. You tell me what you think the commonality between them is. Anthony Rizzo, Albert Pujols, Yordan Alvarez, Jose Abreu, Eugenio Suarez, and Kyle Schwarber. Anything seem to stick out there?
Are they all left-handed bats?
20 home runs.
A lot of home runs, right? Pretty slow, generally unathletic guys. The common is they all have the same amount of double plays as Trey Turner this season. Okay. I know you had one of the questions was, is Trey Turner the most highly touted? Is he top 5? I hate Trey Turner. As a Dodgers fan, there has never been a player that I've hated to
What?
Trey Turner. I know, I understand, but I watch him day in and day out, and it is awful. It is awful. And maybe it's because I loved Corey Seager. I might be biased. First off, he doesn't hustle. Okay. I know you see the slides. The slides are cool, but when he's not sliding, he's not hustling. He does not beat out infield hits. He grounds into double plays, clearly. Other than stolen bases, his speed is pretty much nowhere to be found. He plays awful defense. He's 27th in baseball as far as outs above average, has a negative outs above average. Seager, just for instance, is 12th in baseball with a positive one. Obviously, I'm going to throw some stuff to Seager here because I love Seager. He does not put the ball in play when he needs to. Strikes out way more than Corey Seager anyway, but strikes out too much and does not put the ball in play in situations that you need productive outs. And he's the least clutch player I've ever seen. In the 2019 postseason with Washington, obviously their World Series run, he hit 233 with a 291 on base. And for Los Angeles last year, 216 with a 245 on base. What did Seager do? Of course, Seager won the World Series MVP. It's just a day in, day out watching Turner. It's really the defense. The defense is just so mind-bogglingly bad. He's a second baseman. He's not a shortstop. Please don't let it fool you. And it's not that he's so fast, that he's so rangy, he gets to balls that he shouldn't. Balls hit right at him. His arm is just god-awful. I'll get off the soapbox, but I can't stand.
It's too bad Scott's gone because I'm sure he would have had some interesting thoughts on that, but that's a really great point. I just like the idea. Maybe this is one for next week, but who is your least favorite player on your favorite team? In your lifetime of viewership, right? That's something interesting to consider. I don't really have too many strong feelings about Trey Turner, so I can't really speak to this one. But
it's definitely the strongest opinion I've ever heard. So
yeah.
that's
you know what? In the mind's eye, there were some good points. I would like to see the stats of the clutch from a mind's eye standpoint. Some of us on this panel are degenerate gamblers. Moving on. So have had the Dodgers many times. And by the way, I had San Fran to beat the Dodgers today. That Darren Ruff was the last good thing that happened anyway. But man, that's a great point about Trey Turner not putting the ball in play productive outside is such a great point. The mind's eye really speaks to me on that. I was stunned when you first said it because I didn't know Trey Turner had the tractors. But truth be told, Josh Donaldson's a 4-letter word for me, and that was a Blue Jay MVP. So I like Adam's idea too. Let's have a whole topic on this. I get the idea that you can be part of a fan base and somebody's supposed to be really good and you can still not like that player. I've just never heard it. And man, you could have given us so many guesses. Guess who I'm about the soapbox here? I would not have guessed Trey Turner. I've just never heard that before from a Dodgers fan. But great points made. That's great points made.
His stats are wonderful. I think it's just the game to get you watch. It's the whole Dodger mentality. Mookie fits it. Freddie fits it, right? These are gamers. These are guys going out giving 100%. Freddie and Mookie, obviously, Gold Glove defenders. And I just don't – it's a lot of missing Corey. There's just the little things that Corey does.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds like you miss Seager more than you hate Turner.
He was a Dodger. He played. He hustled. It just seemed like he hustled. Like he just cared more than Trey does. And when you watch someone that doesn't care – and then they still hit 310 with a 380 on base. Trey Turner's still a filthy player. Don't get me wrong. It's just the little things I think that affects playoff baseball, like I was alluding to before about trading Gurriel for the Blue Jays.
Can I ask you your thoughts on another LA Dodger who I'm curious about? Sure. Where does, and you're going to speak for all of them now, the entire Dodgers fan base, where does the Dodgers fan base stand on former MVP Cody Bellinger?
It is a sad story.
Is there still love for Cody, or are you, because he's 26, 27 years old?
Yeah, I believe he's 27 now.
Is his career over? Because it feels like that, but I feel like he's got something left to give, maybe with a change of scenery, maybe north of the border.
Ooh, okay. I actually really like Cody still. Again, he's someone that hustles and dogs it out. If he hits a ball on the ground in the infield, he's flying to first. He is super athletic. And regardless if he hits 150 or not, the defense that he plays in center field, I mean, you saw some of the plays he made in the playoffs, robbing home runs, making sliding catches. I mean, that's irreplaceable, the defense he plays in center. The offense has been obviously just atrocious. I think he's very streaky. He's a lefty with a really long, loopy swing. And, I mean, I hate to say it, but one celebration of an arm lock, he has literally not hit since then. I mean, it really could be slightly injury-based, and then once he's gotten off the injury, shit changes. When you change your mechanic from an injury, he might not know how to perform exactly the way he used to because his swing path might be different, because there might be a hitch, or it might not feel as comfortable.
Well, that's a great point, because, and not to take this baseball talk in a direction of golf, but I mean, Tiger Woods, freak athlete, dominated golf for years, and then through the back injuries and everything, had to reinvent his swing. And I mean, I think still just through like sheer force of will got to be, towards the top of golf again, shortly lived. But yeah, when you start like tweaking a swing that got you to that level, good luck finding a second version of that swing that is just as successful. So,
and maybe Toronto is the place, like you said. I was going to hop in when I forget who said it. I forget who said it, but they've done a lot of work developing players, bringing them in, and different types of swings too. Like a Tapia is a guy that just bats a ball, and Simeon's a kind of guy who they worked on his power with. I mean, maybe having someone else take a look at Cody's swing could be the best for him, because clearly he hasn't been able to get it back since the injury. But I do nothing but love for Cody.
Do you think Cody gets a contract extension with the Dodgers?
Seeing how they've been treating players that have been on the team that they've brought up, Jock's gone, Corey's gone. They didn't want Kersh, basically. I don't think so. I think they're moving in a different direction. I think there's a possibility they bring in Soto if they can. And then my replaces Cody.
The second question to that would be, what is the trade value realistically for Cody Bellinger? If you're going to trade him, are you going to get anything back? I mean, the resume's there, but the track record as of the last 2 years, certainly a black eye.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his career, came up rookie season, most home runs ever by a rookie, right? He had 40 out the gate. Then he struggled a little bit his sophomore season, MVP, and then 2 bad seasons now, or it might be 3, parts of 3. I mean, you look at a guy like Simeon, he won MVP, struggled, and then really only got a qualifying offer, right? He only got a 1-year deal from, I guess, the Blue Jays. So, I mean, if that tells you something, even if you won an MVP in the past, it's what have you done for me lately kind of league. I think his value should be a little bit more, but it's very tough. If you don't think you can take on the project and make him a better player, his value to you is going to be nothing, except that he is a good defender. If you need a defensive outfielder right now, but
we already have Bradley Zimmer.
Right, the Dodgers aren't going to let him go for the price of a defensive outfielder when he has MVP offensive potential. It's pretty.
The upside's there. It's interesting to see how that'll all play out with Cody Bellinger. It's one to keep an eye on for sure. Okay, last thing that I want to get to here, and then we'll say our goodbyes. We'll let everybody go. This will be a quick one, but on the broadcast, regardless of whether you're watching on TBS, Sportsnet, ESPN, I don't know what Apple and YouTube do. It's probably something stupid, but during the first at bat for everyone, they show, Vladimir Guerrero hitting 287 on the year, right? And then the later at bats, he's 1 for 1, he's 0 for 2, he's 3 for 4, whatever, right? My question is, in a world where baseball evolves and that broadcast, that one detail is going to get changed. Instead of displaying the batting average, because a lot of people believe batting average is an outdated, overvalued stat. It's too old. There's better stats to represent a player's true hitting or productivity, whatever. What is the one stat that you would like to see displayed on the broadcast instead of batting average? So Lourdes Gurriel steps up to the plate. What do you think is the catch-all statistic that should be displayed? I don't want, we're going to highlight everybody's best feature. I don't want to get into that. We're going to do one stat, covers all of baseball, and that's going to be the new representation on the broadcast. What is the stat that you want to go with? I've rambled in a circle to give everybody a chance to think, and now we're going, Craig, it's your turn.
I knew you were going to say that because I wanted to say the best stat, and you already took that off the table. So I knew you were going to say, Craig. Now that I pulled the plug, now that I pulled the rug from under you, let's go to you. Oh my gosh. Well, I must be way old school then. I got no problem with batting average as a real measurable stat for a player. Personally, I would like to see batting average, on base percentage, and OPS. I think, and with the graphics the way they do it these days, I absolutely think you can do it. They're making space for more graphics these days. If you've seen some places, Adam, they'll put the pitch sequence in the top left, which I love as well. So it doesn't feel cluttered to me, nothing like that. I think if you take your mind's eye back when that strike zone first came up, I think maybe we wondered, hey, is this getting a little cluttered? Is it? Man, we're so used to all this right now. You could put a few stats on there, and for me, on batting average, on base percentage, OPS.
I agree with that too. I definitely think that would make a lot more sense. And you're right. There is more space to be throwing out more stuff. I mean, like I don't see why they couldn't throw out a WAR on there as well. So I mean, I do think like batting averages as well. You can't really take that away because again, when you have like the common fan, that's something that they might be able to relate to. So definitely don't think you can take it away. But yeah, on base percentage for sure. And then I would love to see WAR up there too.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're really looking for an all-encompassing statistic, then it would be WAR for sure. Not that there's flaws to WAR calculations, but that's the one that is trying to encapsulate everything about a player. But there aren't enough people necessarily who understand what that stat means or where it comes from or how it's calculated. But everybody understands batting average, right? So that makes it really, really easy. So in lieu, if it's not going to be WAR, then I would like to see on base percentage, on base and slugging, right? Like those are the two that I'd like to see.
Sure.
But you're right. There definitely is room for more if they wanted to put that in. I actually couldn't necessarily care less if a guy was 1 for 3.
Maybe we need to see what YouTube is doing. Maybe they're actually on it.
Dad?
I'm going to go with something that Craig kind of said it before. That for the degenerate gamblers, I think a cool thing would be is having maybe stats against specific pitchers or teams. So more relevant stats to the exact situation they're in instead of the whole picture of batting average. Like you can have batting average and then batting average versus Kevin Gausman or versus the Blue Jays. Just as more of a, I don't know, I think it'd be interesting to see case by case in that situation how players
definitely would be cool.
Joel, are you just saying you're like you wanted the mic and then we waited?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry to take the camera. They go to me on the camera when I
Yeah,
sorry.
It's all good.
I was gonna say I agree with everybody on average. I love batting average. I feel like it's something you can't. I want more, like everybody else too. I feel like there's a lot of downtime, and we feel a reason to put up stats maybe like for one pitch of an at bat every third at bat or every second at bat, and not put the stats up every time. I feel like there's more time to show stats, and when you get into like when you look at on base, you get to the point where you want to dissect it from a hitting standpoint, see how much the guy walks compared to how much he hits to get that on base, right? So I don't think you can take one away because one tells you how much of that on base is real. Is he a hitter or is he a guy with like Cavan who's really patient and, more than a third of his on base is based on walks. The thing that I would say put up would be OPS plus because it's seasonal. And numbers change seasonally. We've seen it a lot over the past 6-7 years where league average is like 770. And if you don't understand that the league is swaying up and down a lot right now from season to season, and you think that 770 is just league average, but then you realize if you have a 770 OPS, you're probably a 125 OPS plus. You're probably 25% better than average when you would have considered that number to be an average number based off of previous seasons, right? So when you, especially this year where league OPS, I think is around 700, 710, when you've got a 750 guy this year compared to being a 750 guy last year, it seems like you're the same. But compared to the league, you actually got 25% better. And that kind of, increase in ability goes unnoticed if you're thinking that OPS is a yearly number that stays the same.
That's a good point about like putting a seasonal wrinkle on it too, because there was a long stretch there through May and June where like Matt Chapman was hitting 200 and 200 this year wasn't quite as embarrassing as it has been in years past, right? Like,
Yeah, it's
When
it's
he was
weird.
hitting 200, league average is 230.
yeah.
Who was it a year or two ago that did sort of like an alternate broadcast that was all advanced metrics?
Oh, I don't know.
I know they've done that for the Derby. They've done that for the home run Derby the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, I think there was an actual game where there was like a separate broadcast and it was all advanced analytics. And I don't know if it was Baseball Reference or Fangraphs. Like, I'm not really sure I don't remember anymore who was involved. But it would be kind of interesting if you were an MLB TV subscriber, let's say, that maybe certain games you had that option of like an alternate.
We're way over time here, so we can keep this short, maybe bring this up for next week. But I would really like to see more customizable broadcast consumptions. So like when Jen mentions do you want to have the advanced stats or the old stats, right? Do you want to have the Dan and like whoever the regular broadcast commentators are? Or do you want like the sounds of the field and now you're just listening to everybody's mic'd up and you got the HD crack of the bat and stuff like that? I don't know, just the day and age we live in, like it should be possible to just click like, this is the audio stream that I want for it, this is the broadcast overlay that I want for it, I want to hear the home team, I want to hear, like, just why can't we pick that? Why can't we intermix them? I don't know.
That's
okay.
brilliant.
The age of customization.
It's interesting when the Yankees have 9 guys in the broadcast booth at the same time instead of dividing it into 3 broadcasts where you can attack exactly what your viewer wants, right?
Exactly.
Joel, I thought for sure Joel's idea was going to be a scroll at the bottom that just lists the players in their favorite Tom Cruise movies. So I'm just thrilled.
Yeah.
I like that. Bring him
Did
up.
anybody notice his Top Gun reference off the top?
No.
Was I the only one?
You might have been. What was it?
Buzz the Tower?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good call,
Okay.
Jen. No, you're right.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you
All
for
right.
You want
noticing.
to buzz the tower? It was about the home run jackets. You're right.
All right. Very sneaky. It's like a Where's Waldo we're playing every episode. All right. On that note, let's wrap it up here. Big thanks to everybody. We had over 45, 50 in the live chat today. I don't know how many it's going to get on the rebroadcast tomorrow, Monday morning, but thank you all the same. Joel, let's go to you first. Where can people find more of you? What are you working on? You mentioned your Tommy John script.
Backwards, hey, Kami is not where you can't find it by reversing those letters and looking that up.
Joel, your camera actually shows flipped for us, so everybody's seeing.
Oh,
it
it
normal.
does?
Yeah.
Yeah. On mine, it's backwards.
Okay.
So everything that I've been saying is completely wrong then.
Yeah, when you had the Pujols jersey and you're like, this is backwards, it wasn't.
No, it's not.
Oh, wow. That is really weird that mine would be backwards, unless I just instantly became dyslexic in the
Quit
last
looking
half an hour.
so close into the camera. It's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids all of a sudden. Where can people find more of you, Joel?
Hey, Kami, on TikTok. We just, tackling baseball as often as I can. And then the movie is a lot of editing, but it's really coming along. And then I'm not supposed to talk about Tommy John, so hopefully this doesn't get back to him. But things are all of a sudden, after having that finished a year and a half ago, all of a sudden production, it's gotten to the place where it needs to be production-wise. And
Nice.
production companies are kind of vying for it simultaneously. 16 months of nothing and then 2 won it at the same time, so
That's how it works.
you gotta
man.
leave the
You
blood
gotta-
in the water for a while for the sharks to get it, I guess.
Yeah, you got to water that bamboo every day. All right.
That's awesome, man. Congrats.
Craig, let's
Thank
go
you.
to you. Where can people find more of you?
You can't. I have been forced or voluntary, however you want to put it. I am retired. You cannot find me. As I would definitely recommend the Walkoff podcast. If you're a Toronto Blue Jay fan, I've shouted this from the rooftop more than once. It is an outstanding Toronto Blue Jay podcast. You're going to see a lot of minor league players coming up through the system as well. Some really great interviews, some really great guests. I am 2 thumbs away up for the Walkoff podcast. So that's all I want to talk about is the Walkoff podcast.
You're sweet. All right. Thank you, Craig. Very kind. Jen, let's go to you.
Yeah, I echo Craig's sentiment actually, because it's why I'm here every Sunday. I love this panel and have fun every week, and 2+ hours and we're still rolling. So I absolutely love this podcast and hope more and more people are tuning in every week. And you can find me You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at baseball_Jen, and that is Jen with 2 N's.
Very good, Jen. Comment from the YouTube live chat. It was YouTube, Jen, who was doing the advanced stats display. So.
Oh, okay. I just was wondering, I guess, like, who were they using Fangraph stats or base? But I guess it was a YouTube stream, so that's cool to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go. All right, Josh Elijiah, host of Down by 2.
Yeah, totally.
Down by
2 podcast. Yeah. We've released our own little mini show. We partnered up with BetStamp, which is an app that we use to line shop and basically take all of the sports books that are, either available in Ontario or across North America and finding the best odds that are available throughout all these different sports books. So that's DB2 Bets now that we do every week. And we come up with our picks for Friday, every sport. So definitely going to want to have anyone on here on this show to come be a guest on the show. Would love to chop it up and talk about some picks. And then our long form podcast, we put out about 2 a month, but right now we're really focusing on our partnership with BetStamp. So go check us out on any form of social media, Down by 2 podcasts.
Very cool. Thanks for your time today, Josh. I'd love to have you back.
And Josh and Adam are, know what it's like to have to carry a show that Scott is involved with. So you guys are thick as thieves.
Oh yeah, picking up the pieces always.
Yeah.
All right, and last but not least, we've got Daniel Vario in the Soto jersey, 10th Inning Baseball Podcast. Tell us more about it. You have a co-host. Give us a brief shit talk about him and what your show's all about.
Of course, yeah. My co-host, Sean Meyer, he's great. We just started it last year, just 2 friends. He moved away. We both love baseball, grew up together, figured why not come together once a week. It's a long form podcast, about 45 to an hour. Over the off seasons, we do all positional breakdowns and player rankings and projections. Right now during the season, we're doing weekly recaps of what's going on, hitter highlights, pitcher highlights, players to look out for based on advanced metrics, stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. It's just a really fun podcast. Merch right here, 10th Inning, but we're small and growing. So please go check us out. 10th Inning Podcast, man. Instagram and YouTube. Same.
Very cool. Love it. Thanks everybody for all your time this week. Episode 25.
I just wanted to throw a plug out for Jack, who got kicked out. You can check him out on TikTok at Daily Dose of Baseball. He covers mostly Baltimore Orioles stuff, but he covers all baseball pretty much top to bottom. He's does great content, so just give him a shout out because he dropped out about half an hour.
That's very important. Thank you, Joel. Daily Dose of Baseball on TikTok, very good, very interactive in the comment section too. So drop your comments on his videos. He gets back and likes to mix it up and argue with all the comments there. So good stuff. Thanks again to everybody, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.